Mike Schneider podcast.
We're here with Henry from the internet, from fingerboarding. You know Henry. Everyone knows Henry. They might not know Henry, but they're about to.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, we've been friends for a while now. I think I first met you when you were like 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
23.
23. Cool. So we got about 11... Wait.
About
14?
9 years,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah,
since
9
we
years.
actually conversed and whatnot. My first rendezvous was 2013. That's the first time I saw you in the flesh. But yeah, we weren't tight then by any means. But yeah, 10 years, let's say, give or take.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Well, we've been talking for the last 48 hours straight, basically. So it's cool to finally get the cameras going.
I know we were talking about Alex. I mean, we've just held back so much. I was just totally hiding a bunch of things so we could talk about it on the podcast. So this works out perfectly.
Yeah, keep it fresh.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, so we're going to get into how you got into fingerboarding. And before that, we can start with the basics, where you're from, a little bit about how you grew up, and then you can kind of go into your journey through, being a kid and then finding fingerboarding at some point.
Right on. Yeah. So I'm from Weehawken, New Jersey. I love Jersey. It's the only state. Loved where I grew up.
It's the only state.
the only state.
Wait. Where are we now?
New
Jersey.
cares?
Okay.
Yeah.
we're in New Jersey.
Yeah.
All right.
It's New Jersey against the world, my man. Yeah, I love New Jersey. I grew up right outside New York. If there was another state, that's probably one of them. But right outside the Lincoln Tunnel. So no traffic, 12 minutes from the city. So kind of a mixture of my family, we always called it the urbs. It was a mixture of suburban and urban, but really small town. 93 kids in my high school graduating class, which was the biggest we had in decades. So super intimate, tight-knit town. Yeah, grew up there, still live there, big fan of it. How I grew up, I'd say fairly well. I had really awesome family, good group of friends, especially later in high school. Yeah, fairly normal, basic life, I'd say, for the most part.
How did you become so disciplined? Because one time when you were at my house and it was all crazy and stuff, and then we woke up the next morning and you were 14 and you were cleaning the house, and I couldn't even get my friends that were 18 to clean the house after that. Where did that come from?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, I think I was just kind of raised to, if someone's doing you a favor and being nice to you, letting you stay at their place, try and extend your hand where you can. I was also a Boy Scout and an Eagle Scout. I don't know how much of that really plays into that, but just that type of politeness and reverence and whatnot. I also took a class my freshman year of high school. Yeah, my freshman year of high school called Manners and Etiquette.
Whoa.
It was an elective, and it was actually dope. It was me. I was the only freshman, or one of very few. It was mostly seniors, and that's who it was ideal for, because there was a unit on buying a house, or buying your first apartment, how to shop for groceries.
You went to a good school, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
it
So
was-
New Jersey is actually legit.
Yeah. Oh, we're about it.
Wow,
for sure.
I never
Yeah.
This is great.
It was a really cool one. Yeah, that whole
Is that public school?
Yeah, it was a public school. Wow. Yeah, and how a lot of people always say oh, they never taught us that in high school. Which granted, yeah, they didn't, but even if they did, you probably weren't even paying attention to it
We
anyway.
did not have the option to learn that.
Exactly, yeah. We at least could opt into it in a way. I mean, I didn't really even think much of it. It was just an open elective. I said sure. They did a whole unit on table manners, where the teacher would actually make us these full meals, chicken and pasta, salad, and we'd all have to set the table. And it was cool. We got to eat together as a class and stuff.
Wow.
I was going somewhere with this, I promise. So I was taking it around that time. I don't think that actually played into it at all, but just, trying to be a mannerful person where possible. I even remember actually after I stayed there, around that time, we were doing a unit on writing thank you notes to people. And I remember literally hitting up Ryan on Facebook, Ryan Bernier, and being yo, I'm really appreciative of Mike, letting me stay. Should I send him a thank you note? Should I mail it to him? And he was yeah, super don't do that. But
Dude, I would have loved it.
you just thank him or whatever on Facebook. But
I
yeah,
could see him saying no to that. That's
I
what
can
I thought you were
totally
gonna say.
I know, I totally should have done that. But
That's okay. It doesn't matter. We're here now.
Yeah, we're here now. Exactly.
It worked. No, that really left a huge impression on me when you were cleaning and being like pretty proper about stuff because it was like we were all pretty immature at that time, and to see somebody younger than us being like a role model, like literally, like, and it's like, wow, this kid's better behaved than us. Like, not that we're like crazy or anything, but just like he's cleaning the house in the morning, like a basic thing. Like, okay, we like, I don't know. I was just like, this is a good kid, you know, like.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I'm glad it rubbed you guys the right way, and yeah,
Totally
makes me feel good to hear. Lovely. Yeah.
So you were raised right.
Something like that. I like to think, you know. Yeah.
It's cool.
As for fingerboarding, like how I got into that, so I had two close friends, both of whom I'm still very close with today. We all like skated together growing up.
All right, so how'd you find skateboarding then?
Oh, okay, yeah. So skateboarding was always a huge part of my life. Pretty much just, I guess like I played like, you know, Pro Skater and Tony Hawk's Underground 1, 2, and American Wasteland. Like I could probably recite verbatim. I know Tim mentioned it on his episode, but like we're always talking about like the soundtracks from there, and like we're always talking about those games. But I mean, I guess I had my love for it beforehand. I don't know exactly what it was. Like I just know like every time I would be like walking somewhere and I'd see people with skateboards, like, you know, like I was a little kid, so it was like cool teenagers skating, so like that was always really cool to me. And then I remember when I was like 5 years old, give or take, I watched The Lords of Dogtown, like in some local CD theater by me, and in it, I literally don't remember like almost any of the concept, like any of the plot of the movie. But I think one of the dudes in it has cancer, so they shave his head or they shave their heads or something. Anyway, I had like a bowl cut. The next day, I got a buzz cut, and just because I was like influenced by that movie, just because I thought it was like so cool. So yeah, I guess like that, and then just playing like the Tony Hawk games. I just like love skating, and yeah, got into it from there. And I never really got good at it, but I always had like decent board control. Like the way I looked at it was like I was never a good skater, but like people who didn't skate at all like would probably look at me skate and think that I could, you know what I mean, just from like my comfortability on a board and stuff like that.
I mean, it's all about having fun, not like your skill level anyways.
Exactly, yeah.
But you're saying you weren't like pro or anything, like
far from. I mean, you know, I just like, you know, pushing down the street with friends and stuff, and you know, especially in high school I got more into like the skate park culture, which was cool. Just ended up falling out of that for whatever other reasons. But these two buddies of mine, they skate and they were decent. And keep in mind, we're like 12 at this point. This is in mid 2012. One of them, he like shows me a fingerboard. I guess actually a little more context is like 3 years prior, 2-3 years prior, he like had tech decks and he was like getting into it. And then, you know, he was like, yeah, man, I'm actually like sponsored by this dude in Alaska. They have like these events and stuff. I was like, all right, this all just sounds like a fever dream and not very true. And at the time, it probably wasn't, like, because we were like really young, and we're doing like the 3 fingers, just like back and forth, fat ollies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That kind of fell by the wayside. But then a few years later, that same friend came back with like a real fingerboard, and he was showing it to me, and he was like, yeah, like, we're getting like, we're really enjoying this. He's like, there's this dude Mike Schneider, and he's showing me these videos. I'm like, wow, this is like so dumb. What is this stuff? Especially he showed me his setup, which I remember to this day. It was a low. I've been looking for the graphic forever. I even got in touch with Berta about it, because she rode for Low Pro, or she still does. He had a Low Pro tiramisu. It's like 30 millimeters. It was called like the propaganda graphic or something. I remember it's exactly what it looks like. I just can't track it down anywhere. With black 29 millimeter BRTs and black BRT edition wheels. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And the foam tape. I mean, that's like the craziest part about it. I thought, I was just like, that's like the biggest difference from like a tech deck, or at least like the first physical sensation that you feel it's different.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, yeah, this is like weird but cool or whatever. Then he told me how much it cost, like $150 or whatever. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's gnarly. So like we would play with that one a little, and I was like, all right, yeah, this is like cool-ish, but I'm never gonna actually get into this stuff. And he also had this other board. I also remember this one. I still have it, actually. I almost brought it, and I just totally forgot to. It was like this 30 millimeter Roswell's board, orange dip. I remember the exact sticker job they had on it, with yellow China trucks and pink non-bearing wheels, which were like smoother than tech deck wheels at least, with skate grip and then like a red line grip gap in the middle. but like it was like, you know, bigger and stuff, so it was like definitely different and better than a tech deck. And like I would try that and I was like, oh man, yeah, like this is actually like, this is cool. And you know, we would all just sit on the floor and play with it and whatever. And he would like, or these two friends of mine, like, you know, they'd get really competitive about it. And, you know, of course you do, as you do with your friends, and you start wanting to do more and more tricks. And I vividly remember it was September, end of September or end of October 2012. That's what it was, because it was during Hurricane Sandy in my town. Those two friends were over and we're fingerboarding, and he has that orange Roswell's deck over and he's playing with it. And we're all playing with it on the ground. And then because it was during the hurricane, we got a blackout in my house. And so everything goes pitch black, and my friends are just like, okay, we're gonna go. I'm like, all right. My friend left that Roswell's board behind. Ooh. So I was like, oh, okay. He'll get it back, but not yet. So I don't even know how long it was. It was probably a couple weeks that I had it, and he never asked for it or whatever. And I just like started practicing like crazy with it. I filmed my first like mini with it, with that and some tech deck.
Cool.
And like, you know, that's when I was getting my kick flips down. I was getting my basic like grinds and slides down. Yeah, and then that's just kind of when I realized like, all right, I actually like this and I want to I want to do more of it. So yeah, that was like kind of my foray into fingerboarding. There was also another dude who was kind of in that crew who I was cool with, but like they were tighter with him. And I just found out two of them actually live together now. And I just found out that he like never stopped fingerboarding, and he's like decent, and like he has like setups with like real trucks. He just got a Berlinwood setup and stuff. Like I was at his place the other day, had a rail, a mani pad. I was like, dude, why didn't I know you still did this? Like I'd bring you to events and stuff. Like that would be awesome. So anyway, I only found that out like a few weeks ago. So now that I know that, like there's an event in Jersey in a couple weeks, I'm gonna try and bring him too.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was my
crazy.
intro.
That's awesome. So it's basically because of that hurricane that you got like into it.
Realistically, if it wasn't for that hurricane, I don't know what would have happened. Not like I probably would have never got into it, but like
you may have found it later or something.
Yeah, you know, I was always like reluctant to like ask my parents to buy me stuff, and I remember at the time, like I at the time I felt like I didn't have $1 to spare, but realistically I probably did. Like, and I could probably go buy a tech deck. I don't know why. I just remember it being like such a hassle to like go and buy a tech deck or anything, or like I wasn't able to, but realistically I probably was. I remember like burning the kicks and stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And then eventually I bit the bullet and I asked my parents to buy me one on eBay. It was like $7 with like foam tape though. It was like wooden. And it was actually, I mean, it wasn't decent. It was actually really bad, but like for what it was decent. And that's probably when I took that next step. And I used that for a while until someone snapped, like it got snapped. I remember exactly how. I was on a pogo stick at my friend's, and it fell out of my pocket, and I just like totally, yeah.
The pogo went onto it?
Yeah, I pogoed that to death. Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
That's crazy. That's like, you got to be pretty accurate to get that.
It was literally, that was some bad luck. And then I think I ended up getting another one of those, but then like, you know, I ended up progressing from there. I got like a Tech Deck Expert Skate. Those were big at the time. Or they were like, they actually weren't that big, but like those were like showing up online. I ordered one of those. I learned more from that. Then I got a broken knuckle. I probably learned the most on that one in terms of like, that was like probably the best setup I had to that point. And then from there, that's when I started getting more established in like the actual fingerboard scene. I started getting involved in like the forums and whatnot. And yeah, that's when it really kind of became more of a blur, you know, and it took off.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. When did you get to Rendezvous or events in general?
So first Rendezvous was Rendezvous 15, which was in April of 2013.
Good memory.
Yeah, cool. I haven't missed one since, that's something
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, I make it, the way I see it is, like, there's only two, it used to be, like, sometimes there were 3 a year, but, like, you know, 2 or 3 a year, and they're important for me to go to and, like, see the people I get to see so infrequently, like,
yeah.
I make it a point to go to them, you know?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm fortunate enough that I don't live, you know, across an ocean or whatever, you know, I live about a 4-hour drive, give or take, but, yeah, I definitely, like, make it a point to come out to them. But, yeah, so that was my first Rendezvous. I remember my uncle brought me out, Ryan, always tells like the story of how he has his video, this is Rendezvous 15, and there's a clip of me like fingerboarding with my uncle, who looks more like my grandpa because he's my great uncle, like taking pictures of me. He's a photographer type.
Cool.
So he always makes fun of me. And that was a springboard to like that Rendezvous. I wore a Blink-182 shirt because I was a big Blink fan. And Tim Hurley messaged me on YouTube at the time, like totally on the side, and was just like, and so he's probably, Tim's like, I think Tim's 31 or 32. So he's like 9 years older than me. So realistically, he was like around my current age at this time. So he was like 21 or so. And he just messaged me on YouTube like, hey man, I love Blink. Like I saw you wearing the shirt. I saw you made a What I Got at Rendezvous video. And so I could tell it was you. Like, great stuff, dude. And I'm tripping. I'm like, this is so awesome. This dude rides for Flatface. This is so cool. He's probably just grooming me realistically because I was like 13 years old. But anyway, I was like, so we ended up just like talking about music. And then eventually we decided to do a cover of a Blink-182 song with me playing guitar, him playing bass. I forget the exact song. I think we want to do Stay Together for the Kids, which is a really good tune. I never told him this story, not because like I'm embarrassed, it just has never come up. But this is like a good deep cut. I was like practicing, I could play the song, but when it came to like actually sitting down and recording it, it like wasn't coming out perfect, because it never really will.
Yeah.
And I was so distressed over it. I remember like just sobbing one day. I was like, I'm not,
man.
Like, I'm not getting this. Like, this is like I don't want to delay this anymore. He's gonna, he's gonna get mad at me for doing this. So realistically, he doesn't care. I'm sure. He's just like, oh, if he doesn't message me, whatever. I remember that it was such an issue, and I remember actually panicking and just asking if we could change the song. So we changed it to Man Overboard, another Blink tune, and of course he was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't care. Sure.
I don't care. And that was just really, really cool. And that was just cool to me, like the idea that I was like on someone of that level's radar, and like gaining their respect in a way as like a fingerboarder and a musician, and just like kind of by proxy a person as well. Like that was really, really dope. And that is why I'm wearing my gray shirt today. I'm summoning the first two here at the time we're filming this, or we can cut this, whatever. But at the time we're filming this, the ones that have aired so far are Doug and Tim, and they both wore gray t-shirts. So I'm summoning their powers. I know others are going to air before this one. There probably won't be in gray shirts, but this is for them.
That's awesome. I love that.
And Tim's been, a good homie ever since.
Yeah.
We ended up doing another music cover later on. And I also just want to say, like, during this whole time of me getting into fingerboarding, like, more and more, those two friends, like, did not get much more into fingerboarding. I don't even know exactly why, but, like, when I started going to Rendezvous, they're like, what? You're going to Rendezvous? And I remember I would have brought them, but, like, there was one friend at the time who, like, I was definitely, like, a jerk to him, but, like, he was also just, like, always getting on my nerves and stuff. So, like, I didn't want to bring him, but then I didn't want to bring just one. And then my uncle didn't want to bring either of them or whatever. So it was just, like, I just rode solo. And then, when I'm telling them, like, dude, a Flatface member hit me up. They're like, what? I'm like, dude, I saw Mike Schneider. They're like, what? So that was, like, kind of what I was experiencing back home, like, still related to fingerboarding, but just, like, in my personal life, which was just, that was cool. And then, I mean, the total trip that happened, like, when I got on Flatface and stuff, and they're like, all right, this is just bonkers. Or the first time I'm at your house, and I'm like on the phone with my friends. I'm like, yo, I'm literally at Mike Schneider's right now. They're like, no, you're not. I'm like, dude, I am. That type of thing. Yeah.
Crazy. That's cool. So it's like, wait, all right, before I change anything, what about the song that you did with Tim? Is that somewhere still?
Yeah.
I've never heard it. I didn't know that even happened.
Tim probably, or I don't want to speak for him, I guess, but like I'd imagine he might have the file somewhere. I think I checked his YouTube not too long ago and I couldn't find it.
We'll have to ask him.
Yeah, and then later on we ended up doing the Hell Song by Sum 41, but I did bass and he did guitar on that one. We were like a little closer at that point, I think. So that was like less of an ordeal for me. But yeah, I remember it came out decent. That's still out there somewhere.
That's awesome. You guys should make a video together and use those songs.
Yeah.
Or even make a new song. Like, do you play still?
Yeah, I play. I mean, I haven't played
that.
as much lately, but yeah, I still try to do it as much as I can. I actually remember one time I made a mini. He was in a band, Tim, called Circle Nose, like I think that's what they were called, and he had a song called "Kids Are Stupid," and and I remember using that in a mini when I was like 14 or something. And I'll also say at my first Rendezvous, I paid this dude $40. I'll say too, like even back then, even today, like I'm really not someone who likes to spend a bunch of money on fingerboard stuff. I'm not someone who likes to spend a bunch of money in general. So like obviously that includes fingerboarding. So like I was always, especially as a kid when I didn't have like an income and stuff, like, you know, I was just like really reticent to just like be shelling money out for stuff. So at Rendezvous, I bought a setup off this dude for like $40. It was a split ply. I think it was called a J deck, with BRTs, 29mm BRTs and flat-face wheels. And he sold it to me for $40. It was actually like a really good deal.
Yeah.
And I remember like, okay, yeah, I did it. And then like 10 minutes later, I like had gnarly buyer's remorse. And I like found him. I was like, I want to trade this back. And he was like, oh, I already spent the money, which he was probably lying or whatever. But I was just like, all right, it's fine. And I'm glad I didn't trade it back, because what was really cool about that is I was able to like parlay that setup into like other stuff. Like, you know, trading wheels for this and, you know, just getting good trades out of that and kind of building up my supply that way. I also like, we don't have to talk too much about this, but that same friend of mine who I'm still friends with today, he's a friend I was talking about earlier, he's in the Marines, or he just got out. But when we were like, around that time, I like stole a really nice setup of his that like he had just got, and I just totally like jacked it off of him, which is like really, really screwed up of me.
That's against your character, Henry.
It was a lapse of morality of 14-year-old Henry for sure. And I actually recently came out to him about that. Like him and I were just chilling, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. This is what happened.
Wow.
Like, damn. Because at the time, we were also right around the corner from me. The storefront's still there, but it's just like this little storefront. And at the time, it was inhabited by a graffiti company. It was just one guy, and he was like big in the graffiti scene, sold graffiti out of there. And I would just always kick it there. It was like a really small space with like a little couch, but I would just like hang out there all the time. My buddy, he doesn't matter if I drop his name's Joey. Him and I would like always hang out there, and we would just talk, like, we would just hang out, you know? And then I kind of got this dude a little bit into fingerboarding, just kind of showing him like, you know, the cultural overlap between like graffiti and fingerboarding, and then of course graffiti and skateboarding and fingerboarding. Like he had already known about, he was fairly knowledgeable of the skateboarding scene, so it made more sense, you know? And then I remember the day that I like stole it off of him, like obviously Joey was like mad distressed, and this guy was like, who was in his 30s, and we're cool now, like, you know, but like he like came crazy at me. He's like, yo, like I'm gonna tell the cops, like I'm gonna tell your parents, like I was like, dude, I didn't take it, you know, of course. And I remember I gave Joey at the time, I gave him a like a G12 setup that I had. I forget how I even got it, but I gave him one of those.
You stole it. We're gonna have to cut this interview, dude. I know you stole it.
No, I didn't. The G12,
Can't
I think I got in a trade.
Anymore.
I'm canceled. FBI kicks in the door about this.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad about it. And I mean, at the time, this is certainly not justification. This is just like explanation of my thought process. Was just like, he was just someone who like, to me, it felt like he didn't care. Like he didn't care enough about fingerboarding. And I was like, what's he doing? I remember like he bought this setup. It was a 32mm. I remember the exact setup. It was a flat-face G14J graphic, BRTs, flat-face wheels. And I remember he got like the 29mm trucks. Like it was like, I was like, you don't even like, you know, it's a 32mm deck. He was like, oh, you know, I don't know. Which of course there's no justification. Like there's no reason for me to just be like, okay, well that means I get to take it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, that's how I just like rationalized it in my 14-year-old head. And so I never told him. And then recently, and then actually recently when he got out of the Marines, I gave him a whole new setup, which worked out perfectly, because now he's living with that dude who never stopped fingerboarding. So now like he sends me clips and stuff. It's really cool. And I came clean to him about that.
Yeah, that's good that you did that, and it's cool that like you gave him a new one, and now he's fingerboarding again and stuff like that. But dang, I would not have expected that from you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, like, that just goes to show, like, nobody's perfect, and, like, we make mistakes, especially when we're younger. It's like, very common to like do something that like looking back at it when you're older, you're like, how could I have possibly done that? Or like even if you figure out how you did it, you're just like, I can't, like I would never do that now, like at all. It's not a reflection of me, but it's like at the time it was. I mean, like when you're born, you don't know anything, and then as you get older, you learn things. So it's like everybody's learning different ththings, what to do, what not to do, and like sometimes you have to learn it by making the mistakes. So it's like it's cool that you shared that, because like I feel like some people would be too embarrassed to share something like that because it's like, oh, that dude stole something. Like he wasn't just this good mannered kid, he also did something bad. But like it just brings in the whole realistic picture of like what it is to be a person. It's like you're not going to always be perfect, but you're always going to be getting better.
Exactly.
As long as you make the effort to be getting better and not worse.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember even when I was like telling him about it, which really wasn't all that long ago. It was probably within the past, or I guess it was the past like year or two, I guess. And during it, he was like, no man, but like I get it. Like, you know, you were way better than me and all this stuff. And I was just like this snot-nosed kid. I was like, no, dude, like it's not your fault that I stole something from you. Like that's super not on you. And yeah, I mean, I think at that time, him and I were just like this weird like frenemy thing, and I was just like, I don't know. I mean, you know, I was just being stupid.
I feel like also when you're younger, it's like, I don't know, some things like don't like seem like they matter or something.
Yeah.
Like when you're later, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It makes sense because now I know like things about everything, and like back then I didn't know anything about like, you know, what it is to be like friends with someone versus not friends, and like how you should treat people that aren't your friends pretty well too, so that you're not like you don't know all that stuff when you're a kid. You just like,
and also for me, I think it was like such a lack of perspective of like there are many skateboards. Like it super doesn't. I should not care at all how much he wants to, whatever degree he wants to get into this is like totally up to him.
Yeah.
Like just because I take it really seriously and don't spend a lot of money on it doesn't mean he can't not take it very seriously and put a bunch of money towards it if that's what he wants to do.
Absolutely.
But you know, at the time, like that was when fingerboarding was like really becoming most like kind of my whole life, or you know, a really really significant part of it. So like that was how that was the lens through which I was looking at most things.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is something you kind of grow up to realize of like, you know, people don't have to look at things the same way you do, and like, you know, however much of your life something takes up, it could take up a different amount of someone else's, and that's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean. It's like, it's easy to look at somebody else and just be like, oh, like they don't appreciate the thing that they have, but it's like they might appreciate it more than you can see because they have a different relationship with that thing. Like you can't just be like, oh, I fingerboard 2 hours a day and he only fingerboards 10 minutes a day. And it's like, but what does that 10 minutes mean to him? That might be his like only little time to get away and enjoy it, and he loves that. And it's like the same as like you have a little more time and you put 2 hours into it, and it's like, like everybody has their own kind of relation with objects and hobbies and whatever, but it's like you can't put yourself above them just because it's different.
Exactly. And like something like, you know, you just also learn is like, you know, there's for most things, or a lot of things at least, like there's not really a wrong way to do them, but like especially something like fingerboarding, like there's really no wrong way to do it. Like it's just such like an exercise in creativity where it's like there's really no wrong way. Though I will say, just like a way that this kind of bled over into my personal life, I was so shook by like what the graffiti guy was saying. His name I won't drop just because in case. But like I was so worried about like, yo, I'm telling your parents and telling the cops and all this stuff. And Joey, to his credit, was always just like, he was like, no, don't, like, I don't think he stole it. Like, it's all good. Like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to ruffle any feathers and all this stuff. But like for the next like year or two, even anytime my home phone rang, like my heart would sink somewhere between my intestines. Like I was like always so worried that this is, you know, it's Weehawken PD calling me and, you know, inquiring about a stolen fingerboard that there's wanted posters all over the town for, you know, or like that it would be, it was like him calling the house trying to get a hold of my mom or my parents or something. Like that freaked me out for so long. Like literally at the drop of a pin, the second I heard the phone ring, it was like such a pit in my stomach. So I, you know, eventually I got over that.
The
obviously.
life of a criminal.
Yeah, no, so I mean, seriously, hey, if you can't do the crime, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And I totally could. And I mean, that was also like just another like realization to me of like, you know, just, like all the, just like the the ancillary consequences that come with that, like just not being able to live normally. I mean, granted, I was also just an anxious mess, as you know, I suppose, like, but yeah, that was a way that affected me. It's funny, I totally forgot about that until not too long ago, where I realized, like, oh yeah, like I remember that would like totally wig me out all the time.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's a lot to be said about that, but I feel like it also speaks for itself. It's like, you know, it's really, we could go into a whole tangent here. I don't even know if we should, but really, it basically comes down to what you said. Like, can't do the time, don't do the crime.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, even if you get away with it, because you basically got away with it, but you didn't. Like, there's always a consequence.
Exactly.
When you get away with something. You're not really getting away with it because you had like that crazy stress for like a year or two.
Exactly.
When the phone rang. And that's like, it may not seem like much, especially to people that are younger listening and stuff, but like any little stressful thing like that you have in your life, you don't need more of them. Because like one day something real stressful might happen and it's like you don't want other stuff piled on top of that if you have to deal with something more serious, or like it's just a waste of your energy. Like, you should do the best to be like in a good frame of mind and not be like scared when the phone rings.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't steal something even if you know you'll get away with it, because like somewhere else the consequence will come in, even if it's not directly related to. It's kind of like karma, like if you believe in karma or not, but it's like you can see that like if you do good things will kind of follow, and if you do bad things will kind of follow, even if they're not directly, like you didn't get caught by the police, but you were scared of the phone ringing and then you were stressed all the time, and like that could have contributed to your anxiety in general. You might have had other anxiety or...
Yeah. And I mean, look, not for nothing too, like I also, you know, I had hurt a friend, which was unfortunate, and then like, you know, I had the downstream effects of that, like, you know, you're still hanging out and stuff, and I had to like harbor this secret, you know, eventually once you're like 17, 18, like you kind of just forget about it, and you know, your life just turns to other things with that friend. But, you know, for a while, it's like, you know, it was just unfortunate. But, you know, completely brought on by me, so I can't really, you know, cry the blues about it.
No, it's a really cool, like, learning lesson. Like, I'm assuming you didn't steal too much after that.
No, I didn't. Though I will say, like, I could talk about this for a lot longer. Like, this friend and I, like, and it was like that friend trio. Like, this other friend of mine, like, we were always, like, scheming on this one friend, which is really, really screwed up. Like, we did take other stuff from him, and, you know, that stuff we, like, mostly gave back, but it was just, yeah, I mean, not for nothing. I think most of it had to do with, like, our relationship with the friend at that time more than, like, you know, our propensity to steal stuff.
Right.
But either way, I mean, that's what we ended up doing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Same, you know, effect.
Yep.
Yeah. Probably a bunch of crazy stories about that, but we could, like, you know, we could chew up a lot of times talking about how we got away with all that stuff. It's probably not even really worth it. You know?
No, definitely not. Let's keep going. So you went to your first Rendezvous, and how did you find out about Rendezvous, and then like what was it actually like going to that?
Yeah, so it was from that. So the two friends are Joey and Yazid. Those were the two main guys who got me into fingerboarding. Yazid was the one who was really into it, who then got Joey into it, who then both of them got me into it. So Yazid was the most in the scene at the time. Like, he was the one who showed us like your videos and all that stuff. So he just told me, he's like, yeah, they have something called Rendezvous, and yeah, they do this, and showed us some videos of that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And yeah, when I actually went, it was just like, it was such a trip. It was such a cool experience. I remember getting like nervous diarrhea in the bathroom in the place that smelled, in the location that Rendezvous 15 was at. It was the one that smelled like French toast. Yeah. French toast sticks. I remember I was leaving the bathroom. I saw Chuck Pete and Zach McLean, Whoop. And they were like, cool. They was like, oh, hey, what's up, man? I was like, oh, and you know, these guys are like way older than me. I'm like, oh, hey, you know, and then later on, you know, I ended up becoming cool with them and finding out who they actually were, which was fun. But then I remember being online and I met two dudes, both of whose names I remember, but I, you know, just won't say it because I don't think it matters too much. But I just hit it off with them online. They were friends from Massachusetts and they were fingerboarding for a bit. And I remember like I was trying a bunch of different people's setups, and that was the first time like they had like, I tried like really loose trucks. This is when TKYs were big, so like trucks were just like completely flopping all around. I couldn't believe it. And long story short, I ended up becoming like, one of the dudes I was online with had a company, a really, crappy fingerboard company, but he ended up sponsoring me. He sponsored the other guy we were in line with and a few other people. We actually had a pretty tight-knit team that James Peterson was on, I think I was telling you, and I just saw James the other day at the event, and we were just talking, like reminiscing on that. It was like a really cool team because we actually we had like a Facebook group. We all like got along. We all stacked clips and stuff.
Cool.
But the boards were horrible. But that's like all I use because you're sponsoring me, so I'll use them. The boards were horrible, and then the guy like completely scammed me. He scammed a bunch of people when he was sauntering out the door of the fingerboard scene. He had like this bowl or whatever. He was like, dude, I don't even want it. I was like, really? I'll buy it off you. He's like, word, just PayPal me $10. So I did, and then he just never sent it. And I wasn't too pressed about it because it was like $10, and I was like, all right, obviously something's up with this dude. I know his name. I've looked for him in the past couple of years. The dude's a ghost. I can't find him anywhere. But yeah, I've always wanted to just hit him up and be like, hey, like, look, I'm not even mad, but what was all that about?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like probably like one of the really cool things that came out of that rendezvous, just like the relationships I fostered with those people and what that turned into. Just being able to see like all the people who in the videos that I watched, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I remember Zeph Pendleton was there, and I tried his setup, and his trucks were so loose that it popped out of the base plate. That never would even remotely happen to one of my setups because I just use like stock, China trucks, so they were like fairly tight or whatever.
Yeah.
When that
You thought you broke it?
I thought I broke it. When that hanger popped out, I was like, I probably
It's like
turned
when
pale.
Patrick opened the pickle.
Yeah,
I broke it.
Yeah, dude, it was terrifying. So like, and then I gave it to him. He's like, oh, word, it's all good. And then he just pops it in. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, so that's like, I got to really see how people did their setups, like, the variety of them.
Yeah.
I remember the exact setup I pulled up with. It was a Roswell's Complete. It was like a blue dip with a flatface. It was a flat-face vinyl, but I didn't know you had to peel the thing off. So
Nice.
It was like still that on. I wore a flat-face temporary tattoo on my hand because I was a badass. With like green trucks and I think like white wheels. Or no, I think red wheels, and that's like what I rocked that day until I got that J-deck. Yeah. So
awesome.
net, it was a really, really cool time, and it was cool enough that I haven't missed one since,
Yeah, that's amazing, the dedication to not miss one since. Like, even one, there wasn't even a single one you didn't go to. Like, that's awesome. I've also been to all of them.
Have you?
Yeah.
It's funny too, because like, there are friends of mine who like fingerboard friends of mine who like they'll miss them sometimes, and I don't mean ones in California or whatever. I mean like friends in Massachusetts or like in New England or the tri-state area.
Yeah, I'm used to it. Like, I don't expect any specific person to definitely be there. I'm just like, they'll probably be there, maybe not.
Yeah.
If they're not, they'll be at the next one. But
So many of them, like, they'll say like, oh, I have work that day, which like I totally get. But it's also like, you announce the dates ahead of time.
yeah, you could have asked for work like 5 months in advance.
Yeah, like
which
that's
is like usually long enough to get the day off.
Totally. Like, I remember when I was like in middle school, high school, whatever, kind of being like, yeah, I'm gonna make it to all of them that I can. But when I start working one day, like maybe it'll be harder, and maybe I will have to miss one here and there. But I like to think that I'll be able to ask for the day off ahead of time and like really just make plan the trip around that or whatever. And I've been working the past 2 years, and I've still been able to make them with relative ease, because you find a day, hey, can I get this day off or whatever? Or, I mean, technically I don't need to take the day off because I don't work on weekends. I get that people do. But yeah, I mean, but once again, like, this is just my bitterness that I don't get to see my friends. But once again, it's like, if you care more about like working that day than you do about coming to the event. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean that in like the truest sense of that sentence. Like, then, that's how you look at it, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, as much as I do want to see you, and I would love if you would come out,
Yeah. No, it's a great time to see everybody, like, that we don't get to see that often, and they're from everywhere, all different places, so it's like, you got to make the effort to do it when you can.
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
twice a year when it happens.
That's the thing. Like, look, I totally get like not making all the store sessions and stuff. Like, totally. But these are, I look at these as pretty momentous, and so infrequent. So that's why.
And a lot of good things happen at every single one. It's like
good things.
Yeah.
I've done so many good things at Rendezvous. I've done so many cool things that
You want to share some?
I mean, getting to chill with a guy from Wu-Tang Clan, like that was awesome. You know what I mean? Most people don't get to do that, right? I mean, being part of that Great Big Story thing, that was really cool. When we pulled up to the warehouse and it was just me, you, and those two producers, like that was really fun. I mean, and like that's to ignore all like the awesome conversations and sessions and clips and just general good times that you get to have there. Yeah, I mean, all fun stuff. I mean, realistically, if you gave me like I could probably think of 1,000 like concrete like awesome experiences I've had at Rendezvous and stuff like that, but off the dome, like that's a couple,
Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, how come when you were like starting to get interested in fingerboarding, you were like too reserved to buy one? You were like, you don't spend your money on anything and stuff like that. Why don't you spend your money on anything? Like, I think it's really important to save and have good like financial etiquette, so to speak, but also it's like, what's the money for then? If you're not going to spend it on something sometimes.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think it's just part of my upbringing. My mom was very cheap. Not to say like, I would say she was like, if you've ever seen Everybody Hates Chris and like how like cheap the parents are, and it's like, the second you're not using the sink to like shut it and all the lights off all the time. It wasn't like always like that, but she definitely ingrained in me, perhaps to a fault, the importance of saving money. And it's funny, literally just like last week or something, I got a new guitar pedal. And I got a cheap one. I got like a budget guitar pedal. And my mom's boyfriend, who also plays guitar, was just reaming me about like, you don't spend money on anything. This is something to spend money on. You like doing it, you should do it. Don't
cheap out when it matters or when it's that important to you.
So I think it just kind of stems from that. And, growing up, like, my family, like, we definitely weren't poor, I wouldn't say, but we weren't like super great financially, and perhaps we were, I don't know if we were better or worse than I perceived us to be, but and I don't know, I guess this just always came from my like wanting to just like be mindful and polite, but like I would just like try to never ask my parents for money. But I even remember at like that first Rendezvous, or one of the first time my dad brought me to, he was like, how much money do you need to go in? Not like an entry fee, but like how much money do you need to like actually enjoy yourself and buy stuff and have a good time? I was like, oh, don't worry about it. He was like, no, how much? I was like, he was like, would $50 help? I was like, I mean, if you want to, like that would be fine. And he just gave me 100. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
It wasn't.
You guys weren't poor.
Exactly. And I feel like, I always feel bad talking about it because like, I don't exactly know the financial situation.
Well, it's also like, if you don't have a lot of money but you save really well, you can live a comfortable-ish, like, you don't have to be struggling as much, versus if you carelessly spend when you don't have too much money, then you have no money right away. And a lot of people, even who have big incomes, have no money because they spend it too easily. So it's better to be on the side of caution and spend less, but at the same time is to know like when you should spend something. It's like, oh, this special event I go to twice a year, maybe I should bring some money in and buy something I want, because like I'll cherish it forever and use it, and it's my favorite hobby, and like, it's not a waste. It's not like you're buying a guitar pedal but you don't even play guitar really and you just want to try it out. It's like, no, you play guitar like you've been doing it a long time. Get the good one.
Totally. And I think part of it too, and I mean, I guess like it spills over till today, so like I don't know how much this is, but like I think as a kid, like I didn't have such a understanding of like the money I actually had available to me, like, from whatever it be, my bar mitzvah, birthdays, or whatever. Like I had, however much money I had in the bank, which was, very little, but like, was I actually able to like go to the Walgreens and go buy a tech deck if I wanted, spend $3? Like I probably could have done that. I just didn't even really know that I could have. Same thing with like, going to Rendezvous when I was younger. It was like, if I spend this money, I just don't know when I'd get it back, where it's different nowadays, obviously, because I have a salary, so I make money on a consistent basis, or it comes in a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. I don't regret, for the record, I don't regret buying the cheaper guitar pedal, only because I'm still building a pedal. There's like some guitar stuff to it. I'm just like building a pedal board, so I'm just like figuring out sounds that I like and want to dabble with. So I don't regret doing that, but it was just funny that I essentially had this conversation like 2 weeks ago, not even.
It's funny, a lot of ways you remind me of my brother, just like random personality things. And then also a thing with him is that like he never spent money. Like he was very like careful with it. He would never want to buy anything, even if he wanted something. It's just like, yeah, I want it and I have the money, but I don't want to spend the money, so I'll just not get it. Mm-hmm. And like you guys both seem similar in that way too. It's just funny to see like how the personalities are like so similar in different ways.
And look, I will say I spent a lot of money on fingerboarding, like over the years. Like I definitely had and have.
Yeah.
But most of it, I guess really what it came down to is almost all of it I spent like to people, like buying stuff off of people.
Your friends and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, like, actually we should probably talk about like the fingerboard forums, like, because that was such a springboard for me into the community, and like that like really ingratiated me into the scene so much. Basically Fingerboard HQ was really big at the time.
Whoa, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so like I kind of missed the FFI wave. I like had an account, but at that time it was like fairly dead. But everyone was on FBHQ. And Fingerboard FBHQ, well, I guess FFI had it too, but they had a chat box where you could just log in and you could see who's in, and you would just chop it up with people. Cool. So that was really, really cool. You got to know so many people there, people who I'm still friends with today. And then you could just talk about all fingerboard comings and goings across the forum. And then there was like the buy sell trade section. So I would do a lot of that. I would definitely like buy from people, and I would do a lot of trading too. So, I think that even with my lack of spend, or like I said, it was more like a lack of spend on like buying things brand new from a site where you also have to pay shipping and stuff like that. I was just like, I would look for good deals on the buy sell trade sections and pull the trigger on those. Yeah,
that's cool because you can save money and you can find things that might be rare already.
And I got to try so many things that way. I mean, now like my approach is just like I really like having one, maybe two setups, and that's how I've been for. Excuse me. That's probably been for the past 6 years, give or take, maybe a little less than that. But I mean, before that, I was really big on I had dozens of setups all the time. Because I was just able to pull from all over. Oh, yeah, I'll buy a Zona wood for 15. Oh, Andy threw in this deck. Oh, cool. And then, use that for whatever. And set them all up with China trucks or China wheels that people might toss in as an extra. Or, hey, if you have a set laying around, I'll throw in an extra 5 or 10 for you to include those so I could set it up or whatever,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I remember I liked that approach.
Yeah. Cool. What kept you fingerboarding all these years? Is it actually the Rendezvous and the people and stuff, or is there something before that like really keeps you fingerboarding?
So no, it's definitely not the people, and it's not that the people, it's not that I don't love them, but it's just more like whether the people were there or not, I probably would still be doing it or be liking it anyway. Yeah. Because I mean, realistically, I don't fingerboard all that much anymore. Not nearly as much as I used to. I mean, that really I kind of teetered off like probably my senior year of high school, and then freshman year of college, and then after that, more so fell off the radar, and just started doing it less. But I mean, what keeps me doing it, or like what I think is so cool about it, what I like the most about it, what I always like the most about it, is just how easy it is to do, in the sense of like you can just kind of do it wherever. You can invest pretty little mental bandwidth into doing it. You could just be watching something while doing it. You could just be vegging out and do it. And you could also obviously get like super dialed, and there's a time and place for that where that's awesome. So that's probably because theoretically, like I can be, and I could be friends with the fingerboard friends and not fingerboard. People like Tim and Kevin H and I can Crispy. I can name 1,000 people who I'm friends with, even though we don't really fit. Waterfall Dave is really like one of my one of my closer friends, period, nowadays. And, you know, we don't fingerboard together all that often even.
Yeah, you get other hobbies also, like shared interests and stuff. So
Exactly.
it's like it goes beyond fingerboarding, and then sometimes you'll pick up the fingerboard together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, really, like, actually, I want to tell a quick Kevin H story.
Cool.
Because, like, I've told this story to people, and, like, no one's ever laughed, but I think it's one of, like, the funniest, coolest things that happened to me, at least relating to fingerboarding.
I'm already laughing. That's already funny.
It's like, all right, so basically, it was like...
Great story.
Hey, all right, we can cut it. This was, like, I believe it was the summer going into my senior year of high school, so that would be summer of 2016. And I was, like, dating, talking to this girl at a time who was vegan. This is important to the story. So she's vegan, as is Kevin H. And
Yeah.
I would always just tell, and Kevin H, by the way, is from by me in Jersey. So I would always I would always tell her about like, oh yeah, my vegan buddy Kevin H from Jersey and all this stuff. Yeah, he's like a fingerboard friend, but he does this. Like, oh, you guys, like, they knew like similar restaurants and stuff. And I would talk to them both. I was like, oh yeah, you'd love them and all this stuff. One day, I was at her house with like a bunch of our mutual friends or whatever, and they're all just like kind of hanging. I was like flipping through the channels, and I put on Viceland to watch King of the Road. I think it was the first season they did King of the Road on TV as opposed to just on Thrasher. So I just had it on, and mind you, a couple weeks or months prior, you had texted me asking if I wanted to do a shoot for Vice of sorts. And I was like, yeah, sure, totally, let me know. And they're like, okay, cool, like, because they wanted to film it in the city, and you didn't want to travel out there, so you threw my name in the ring, which you had also done with a couple of other things, which were really cool, that I ended up getting to do. So a few weeks passed, and like I never hear anything from Vice, and I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. Then, so I turn on King of the Road, we're watching, and then like it fades to commercial or something, and then there's someone fingerboarding, and I'm like, oh, no way. And then all my friends are like, oh, they're pointing at me, oh, Buster, look at that. Yeah, everyone from mostly everyone where I'm from called me Buster, so that's the nickname there. But they're like, oh, Buster, look at you, whatever. And I'm like, oh, no way, that's wild. And then I'm looking, and I recognize not only the hand, which I can kind of pinpoint, but I also recognize the setup. It was Kevin H's. Yeah. So it was 1,000% Kevin H. And it was like a purple, I think it was like a purple Preet or Berlinwood at the time. Yeah, so he's like fingerboarding with that. So in like a span of like, I don't know, 5 to 8 seconds or whatever, my brain is processing like, oh, there's a fingerboard on the screen. Oh, I know them. Oh, it's Kevin H. And then someone like, oh, that's the vegan. That's the fingerboarding vegan guy and all this stuff. And the best part about it was on his fingerboard, he had a red airflow sticker, airflow rails, that they blurred out, which is hysterical. And I remember we told David Smith about it. He was like, oh, I don't want it blurred out. I want the promotion. I thought that was hysterical that they blurred it out and he didn't get the free promo.
That's so good.
That was just one of like the trippiest, like one of the more trippy fingerboard experiences of my life where I was just like, whoa, that is crazy. And it could have been me, which I have not let go and I'm still bitter about.
Yeah, I don't know how he got that one.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy though. There it is again.
There it is
on
again.
TV now. Yeah. Insane.
I also did that thing for Cheddar, which you set me up with, which was really cool. And it's funny now because now I work in PR, so like we do a lot of work with Cheddar, like getting our clients on Cheddar. Cool. And it's just kind of funny that I remember one time I was like in the office and I overheard a few of this was when I was like newer, and not like I won't talk about fingerboarding, I don't mind, but like sometimes it's a big topic to bring up, like, because then they want to know like, well, wait, how into it are you, like, and what does it really look like and all this stuff. So sometimes it's not a conversation I want to enter into, especially if I have work to do. And I overheard like a few of them talking about their experiences with Cheddar and like landing placements on there and stuff. And I just remember being like,
should I tell them?
Nah. And then I just kind of kept moving. But I remember that happened. That was a cool time.
Yeah, you want to talk more about that for people who are not familiar?
Yeah, for totally. So this was also summer going into my summer of 2016. Mike texted me basically said that this brand called Cheddar, they were new at the time, this was like their inaugural season or whatever, they wanted to do a bit on fingerboarding, but same thing, they wanted to film in the city, they were filming in the Flatiron building, you didn't run to huck it all the way out to the city, which I get. Like I said earlier, I live super close, so pointing them in my direction. Yeah, we booked a date. I went in, and we just did like I don't even know, 5 to 15 minute, I forget how long, segment on fingerboarding. I brought my setups, and I brought a couple ramps, and it was all live. They gave me no background as to what they were going to talk to me about. I mean, besides just fingerboarding.
So just like this podcast.
Just like this podcast. Yeah, exactly. Except at least I have like a couple hours here to rephrase stuff if I want to. There it was just like rapid fire back to back.
Yeah.
And I also remember when I walked in, and it was like, because it was all live, it was like segments. So they were filing someone out and they were filing me in. So it was like, pretty quick turn.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was live.
Yeah, it was live. It was like a quick turn. It was, yeah. And I remember when I walked into, I saw the prompter was up, and they had a question on the prompter, and then the first question they asked was not that question, so that totally off rip just threw me.
Whoa.
Because I was like, oh, I mentally prepared for that answer, and then they're asking something different. I think I made it through okay. People said I did all right on that one, which was cool, and I wasn't too flustered. I have a background in child acting that you may or may not know about, so I was not super flustered with that.
I didn't know. You're gonna have to get into that.
Sure, it's not an illustrious one by any means, but at least I had a little bit of experience just being on on camera. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just did that. And that was really cool. That was really cool that you pointed me in that direction. And it's just funny how it's become a bit full circle now that Cheddar is also huge now. Like I said, that was their first season. They're a lot bigger now. They're actually on TV. They were purely online at that point, I believe. And now we work with them at my job, which is just funny.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. How'd you get the nickname Buster?
My brother wanted to name me Buster before I was born. My brother's 3 years older than me. My parents said they would. They didn't. So that's what he just called me. And then, so, I mean, everyone just followed suit with that. My parents usually call me that, or at least I guess my dad calls me kind of 50-50, but my mom calls me Buster usually. All my brother's friends, who I'm really close friends with most of them, they all call me Buster. Obviously it just kind of spills over and a bunch of people call me that. But it was after Buster Baxter from Arthur. The show. My brother's a big fan when he was a kid. Wow. My brother's I could probably count on my hands and feet the amount of times my brother's called me Henry. So, yeah.
Crazy. I didn't even know that. I've known you for 9 years and I'm still learning.
Yeah,
I've been learning more this weekend than ever.
Yeah.
That's part of the point of the podcast. I was like, I want to get to know my friends on a way deeper level in a way that you don't normally, somebody for a long time, you get so comfortable with them, but you never actually know their full story. You just get little snippets here and there all the time.
Yeah. And so especially cool. Too, with you in particular, I remember this happened last Rendezvous where you're hosting however many people you are at your house, and it's exhausting and draining, and there's just never the right time to really engage you in some really some conversation at length, because I get it. It's just hosting takes a lot out. Hosting that many people takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I get to see everyone for 5 minutes each.
Exactly. So it's and I think most people recognize Rendezvous is usually not the time to broach greater topics with you unless unless they're really pointed and specific, but and that's why I like coming out outside of Rendezvous also, where just time totally. To actually catch up and be cool. Though I have a question for you. Cool. So I know we kind of briefly touched on it. One of the big things I've said to a bunch of people about our relationship is I was always I'm tight with Mike, we're definitely cool, but one thing about him is he doesn't use social media much, and a big way I stay in contact with people is literally just through the exchange of memes. I see a meme, I scroll through, oh, that makes me think of this person, and you have the usual suspects you send all your memes to or whatever, I have my 8 some odd people that consistently get my memes, but sometimes, and that's just how we stay in contact, and then if there's one that really strikes a chord one way or the other, you can talk it through, and oh yeah, actually that made me think, what about this? And you ask a question, and that's how we kind of converse. But you didn't seem to do that much, or at least with me. And I also I wasn't gonna DM you because I always imagine your inbox is probably fairly full. So I was like, I'm not gonna bother him there. And then lately, you have been like way more active, and like you send me posts and like all this stuff, and I feel like I was like, this is great. Like I'm actually engaging with him again, which was really cool. Now, granted, for the viewer, there was also last rendezvous or 2 rendezvous ago, I found out that I had your wrong number for a while. So I was texting you like not a bunch, but I remember like I texted you happy birthday. I like texted you like asking if I could come, asking if I could come stay. And
no
the
answer?
person, not even no answer. They were leaving me on red. They had their red receipts on, and they would open it and not respond. So I was like, "What's up with Mike? Like,
oh man,
why is he not responding?"
The funny thing is, when you were talking about memes, I was gonna say like, why didn't you just text me or something? Because like, then I would see it.
Well, yeah, no, totally. So like,
that's hilarious.
I mean, it's exactly. So that was the thing. It was like I was texting you, and you weren't. I mean, it wasn't you, but you weren't responding.
Yeah.
Last rendezvous or 2 rendezvous ago, I forget what it was.
Yeah, we figured it out.
I was coming up here with Waterfall Dave, and we were like, yeah. He was like, yeah, text Mike and ask if we could come through tonight. I was like, yeah. So I did. I texted you earlier in the week, and you didn't respond. But I was like, maybe he's getting stuff set up. I get it. And then I texted you that night, and same thing. So we're like, all right, this is weird. And I was also, I was a little tight too. I was like, this is, I mean, you can't, now you're gonna tell me no. So either way, like, we just stayed at the hotel that night, and the next day I was gonna ask you at Rendezvous, but you ended up leaving early, so I didn't get to catch you. So I texted you a 3rd time asking, and not you, but they left me on red again. And then I remember I was at 99, the restaurant, with a few people. And one of them was like, who I'm friends with, was like, dude, I actually don't know if you should pull up or not. Like that's 3, like 2 times asking, I get it, but 3 and he's not responding, like that might be a thing.
And I'm probably thinking in my head, like, where's Henry been? I haven't heard from him in a while.
I was literally thinking, I was like, eventually I was just kind of like, look, I'm just gonna show up. If he has an issue with me, like we have to talk it through. If he tells me to piss off and leave, I'll leave, whatever. Like. But we should probably hash whatever this is out,
Yeah.
And then I talked to Ryan, and he was like, all right, what are the last 4 digits you have? I read them out. He's like, that's not it. And I was like, oh my God. But what a jerk, the other dude, to just leave me, like, just not even say,
respond. Like, you got the wrong number.
Yeah, hey, this isn't Mike. Yeah. Word. Cool. I remember then I was going somewhere with Dave later, and I think we were like coming back to your place or going to another event. He was like, yeah, invite the guy at Mike's old number, which I thought was funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, so I'm glad I thought we had I was literally experiencing it. I thought this was a falling out that I had no idea what I did wrong.
Yeah,
I was like, this is
I remember when you were here last, you told me about this, and it was just hilarious. But I felt bad because I was like, I can't believe you thought there was like tension or something.
I didn't until that 3rd text, really, where I was like, this is just crazy. But yeah, so all's good. All's good now.
Yeah, I'm a mysterious person online. I try to like not use it as much as possible. And if I use it now, I try to be more intentional about it. So I'm not like wasting my whole day on there and looking at things and whatever. And just like, I try to only open it up when I have something specific I want to post, or someone specific I want to message. And then sometimes when I go to message people, I'll see other ones, and then I'll kind of get pulled into it a little and try to answer a few. But I'm trying to do less of it and not use social media too much. Just use it when there's a reason to, and that's it. And so, but then other times it's like, I don't know, certain times you just want to look at funny things on there. So it's like I go on there and look at funny things, and then I'm like, this one reminds me of like Henry, or like I think Henry would think this is funny, so I'm gonna send it to him. Like, that's like you get your meme friends, but you only send certain ones to certain people depending what you think they'll like or not, because you don't want to waste their time and send them like stuff that's boring to them. And so I don't know. Lately, there's been more ones that I'm just like, Henry would like this. Like I forget why. I feel like it was something from the last time we hung out. I picked up on some kind of little cue, and I was like, okay, like I just like figured out what his like humor, like where our humors overlap. I picked something up, and then that's where it's kind of been like re-memed. Yeah. Yeah, and it was funny too, because I remember you were posting like, for a while you were posting these things about like how you're doing like technology cleanses, and you were like, not gonna be on or whatever. And I remember thinking like, okay, like I'm never gonna talk to Mike again. Like he's gonna fall off the face of the earth. But I'm glad he came around to it too, just because like, I mean, obviously there's like so much like, really
scary stuff about technology and stuff that we like want to avoid and make sure we don't fall into any traps. But like, there's also a lot of good stuff and cool stuff about it. Like, it's silly to just, you know, ignore all the really significant upsides of like being able to be in constant contact with people and like all over the place, and
you
know, might as well take advantage of it, you know.
And it's like sometimes I'll take like a day or even longer where I don't use any technology. I shut everything off, and there's like, when I do that, I commit to it and there's no exceptions, you know, like it's funny, the first time I did it, I didn't really tell, maybe I told my parents or something like, hey, I'm shutting my phone off for a day, I want to see if I can even do it, you know, but I didn't tell anyone else. And I turned my phone on the next day, and like I had like 30 texts, like because Jay noticed I wasn't like active anywhere online, and he like got really worried, and then he like asked other people if they had talked to me and stuff. And, like,
jeez.
It was like the first 24 hours of no technology. I was like, no one's going to notice a thing, you know. It's going to be hard for me, but no one else will. And I felt like it was harder for everyone else than it was for me. I really enjoyed it, so I started doing it. I tried to do it once a week, but lately I've been like not doing it, but once in a while I still do. It's just like, it's hard to do it every week because I've been doing the podcast, like that uses technology. I got to get in touch with people and make plans, so it's not easy. But when you do it, I have to say, like, it's a very refreshing experience because you shut your phone off and your computer off, and the first few hours you're always thinking like, oh, I gotta take a picture of this and send it to this person, and or like, oh, I want to ask this person this, and then you're about to reach for it, and you're like, oh yeah, I can't though, and then eventually those thoughts like stop coming, and you realize there's a part of your brain that's always thinking about what you're doing and how it can relate to technology, you know, and that's like an active process that like kind of shuts off or slows down once you realize like, okay, that's not available right now, and eventually you get into the zone of like, okay, what's around me in my house? Who's with me in person? What things have I been wanting to do and maybe getting too distracted with other things? Or like, you know, is there a book that I've been wanting to read or a room I've been wanting to clean? Stuff like that. And you're just way more grounded in your actual reality, like where you physically are, and you can live more in the moment and less in the digital space of like ultra connectivity, which like you said is really amazing, but I don't think it's good to be there all the time. It's good to have a break.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. Like I said, I was a Boy Scout, so I have plenty of nights of camping under my belt, and you know, especially in those later years, like when I had a cell phone and like, you know, the real advent of accessible smartphones, when like just everyone had one, and you know, you'd go camping for a couple days or a week or whatever, and it's like at a certain point you just kind of have to make your bones with, okay, I can't use this thing, and you just have to kind of force your brain to shut off. I mean, even this weekend was like, I don't have great reception up here, so like you know, I just kind of have to make do with like, okay, I just can't really use my phone too much, which like at first, like, you know, like you said, you kind of your head starts spinning a bit of like, you know, you're so used to like all that accessibility and all that like content or whatever, and like you just kind of have to put it by the wayside. For me, it's like a little, not just for me in particular, for a bunch of people, it's a little harder. Like my job is just like pretty intertwined with tech, so like, you know, and granted it was a weekend, so it's not like, you know, I'm fielding that many work texts or emails or whatever, but like, you know,
it's Monday right now, right?
It's Monday. I took off today.
Okay.
Yeah. But even though like my phone's buzzing, like I am getting a bunch of emails and stuff right now that I don't need to answer today, but gonna need to answer them at some point, you know, or look at them.
Yeah.
So it's from that angle, it's hard to completely shut off unless you know you can do it forever. But you kind of can't, because, you know, you can put it away for however long you can, but eventually knowing you have to get back to it is like, it's hard to stuff that emotion away. But I mean, like, that's not a problem unique to me. Like, that's a problem that I'd argue to say the majority of adult Americans are feeling.
Yeah, you could say everyone has that practically.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
For me, when I do take the breaks, a lot of times I don't want to turn the thing back on. Like, it's like, okay, it's been like the set amount of time that I committed to. It's been, you know, it's been a day, and now it's time to turn it on. And it's like, sometimes I go a little bit longer because I'm not dying to get back to it, because I'm like, I probably have a lot of messages, I probably have a lot of this and that, and sometimes I'm ready to get back to it because I have too many ideas and I just want to do them, because I do a lot of things on the computer and stuff that like translates to real things happening in real life, so it's important. But there's times when I'm just like, No, I'm chilling. I'm relaxing. Like,
And
I don't need to get it this instant. Maybe in 2 hours.
from my experience too, it's interesting how quick the change happens. Like, considering how ingrained we are, like in tech,
Yeah.
it's funny that it really only takes 24 hours, give or take, for your brain to like kind of reset to our Homo sapien mode and just kind of be like, oh, like I don't need that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think it would take a lot longer, but realistically, once it's away for like a day or so, it's easy to keep to keep that going if you're like able to. You know what I mean? If there was nothing forcing you to pick the phone back up, like a work call or something like that, then like you could actually feasibly keep it away. I mean, what's funny for me is like obviously I just go on Instagram to like hit all the right dopamine receptors and stuff. But I mean, granted, I also use it to like at my job, I do like a fair amount of like sports PR, so like I need to be, or at least I really like to be up on sports knowledge and the current comings and goings, and like so when I'm like off my phone for 2-3 days or whatever, it's like daunting for me to get back on and be like, oh, I'm just gonna have to like scroll through Instagram and see who are the players who got traded, who's like what's this going on, and just see like all the stuff that I miss, and it like becomes like a daunting task. I mean, granted, you hammer it out in like half an hour or something, but
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's like the longer you're away from it, the more you're like, now I have so much catching up to do. It's not
Exactly.
going to be like the fun, normal amount of catching up. It's going to be like an excessive amount that I'm forced to use it.
And not even just on like for example, like work stuff is like you're gonna have to do that, and like that's gonna be a task. But it's like with something like checking social media, like I mean most people actually use Twitter, but I just don't use Twitter for whatever reason. So for me it's Instagram. But like it's like this is not really something that's supposed to be like super leisurely, and like this is about to like become a thing for me. But but it's okay. But yeah,
Yeah. We'll see how it evolves.
that we will.
How about your job? Where you mentioned you've been doing PR work.
Yeah.
Did you get into that through fingerboarding, or is there any connection? Or
No connection there. Or I mean, maybe in the very tenuous one of like fingerboarding was a huge part of my life. It probably shaped me in ways that like I don't exactly realize, but no real direct connection. What?
Hi, Rhombus.
It's Chomulus.
Yeah. So how do you get into that?
She's very distracting. What's it called? Basically, so I went to college for business. I was a business administration major. Had a couple marketing internships while I was in college, and then my last year or so of college, I was like, okay, which I graduated in 2021 for context, and I was like, okay, I have like some pretty strong like marketing internships. I think I had like 3 at that point or whatever. And I was like, and like different facets of marketing, like digital marketing and some strategy stuff. So I was like, let me see if I could get like a PR internship, which is like kind of a different side of the same coin. So just get like a more like holistic understanding of it. So I started applying around at PR agencies to get an internship, just to see. I was like, so I'll check it out, see which one I like more, and then from there I'll decide like which specific field I want to approach. And I applied for the internship. I actually did get it. They just didn't I went about it in an interesting way. I pretty much went onto LinkedIn. I looked up a bunch of different PR firms. I started checking out different PR firms. I went on their LinkedIn and I would find like some executives there, and I would just basically send them a pitch with like, it's your boy, here's my background, I'm graduating with this, that, and the other, etc. And this person got back to me, basically said, let me get you an interview. She got me the interview, and then they were I didn't hear back for a bit, so I just figured I didn't get it. They also told me they didn't have internships in the spring college semester, so I was like, okay, I figured it was a no-go. I ended up accepting an internship elsewhere at an agency I'd already gone at. A week after I accepted, they offered me an internship, which was really, really cool because they made an opening for me there during that time, which was unfortunate. I had to decline, but I did say but let's stay in touch as I graduate and maybe, talk about full-time opportunities. And that's what we did. Smart. And then I ended up getting the job. So yeah, I mean, I think I always just found branding and, you know, promotional stuff. I always found that stuff fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm also like partial. I think like what everyone does is really cool. Like, I'm the type of person who like, people like talk to plumbers and like consider that just like some blue collar trade job or whatever. But like the way I look at like one of my really close friends who's a plumber who like I don't think likes his job or whatever. He actually just texted us this morning saying he's moving, which is ironic. Or more of a coincidence, I guess. But either way, like I look at that as like, dude, when you like pull up to a place, like people can't use the bathroom. And then when you leave the place, they can. Like that is awesome.
Yeah.
Like we all have a role to play in the world. And
Totally.
like, you know, what I like to think what I do is just like, we're all going to like see advertisements. We're all going to be like promoted stuff. Like I like to think what we do is like we make it cool. Like we make it so you're not like bored out of your mind while you're getting that promotional material.
Yeah, you're not like, oh, get this away from me.
Exactly. It makes it, you know, more like, look, if you're going to have to deal with it anyway, it might as well be enjoyable. And I like to think that that's what we do, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool approach for sure. So are you doing like images and stuff, or is it video?
No, so I don't really do any of like the graphics stuff. Like we have like a graphics and, you know, editing department. I do more like earned editorial media. So essentially like what I just do is like one of like the main pillars of my job is to like get media to talk about our clients, you know, whether that be like a magazine or an online publication or Cheddar, like a broadcast. So
you're reaching
station.
out to publications and whatnot and saying like, hey, we got this dude, you want to feature him or something?
Yeah, so I actually usually don't do much talent PR. I mean, like I have like pitched like company executives to outlets and been like, hey, would you want to interview this person? And, you know, we've secured a bunch that way. But like I also have done like I repped a company that made grills, so we would like reach out to like a food outlet and say, hey, would you want to review this grill, you know, or include this in a roundup of grills, stuff like that.
Sweet. How do we get Flatface on there?
That's a great question. I've always considered that. We could get really cool PR stuff.
That could be fun. I mean, I try to actually keep Flatface pretty low key, but if there's the right opportunity, I go for it. So
yeah,
we can think about it.
I mean, like I look at like those placements you get like Wired and, you know, I mean, you know, not placements, just like that's just what
like Red Bull, Wired, like
yeah,
Anthony Padilla. The few people that reach out to me that I accept are like the right ones.
Totally. And to me, a great big story back when.
Yeah, that's another one.
And so I was just like, from a PR perspective, I look at that and like, oh my god, like that's so cool. Like those are sick placements. Like, you know.
But they reach out to me. I don't even like.
Yeah.
I've never asked like, hey, can I be on your show or something?
And that's how I always think of it. I'm like, I've always said that. I was like, he's like just fielding inbounds. Like he's not even actively pitching. Like he probably gets like some cool stuff. But like, you know, like you said, it would probably have to be the right opportunity because I recognize that you want to stay fairly low key.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to asking someone, but I've never really had the need to or seen like the one where it's like, I gotta ask them. But yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll come up with something good now that the idea's out there. You know?
Yeah. Oh.
It's in our heads, and people listening, maybe somebody will have a suggestion or who knows. Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, how's your job? How's it fit into your lifestyle and everything? Is it like a good balance? You like it?
So, realistically, yes, I love my job actually. So to answer that part of the question, I do love my job. I love what I do. I'm so fortunate too that I really love like everyone I work with.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, it really is so cool. Like, I mean, so like so I've been working there just over 2 years now, and like, so ever since then I've been more cognizant about like, I mean, I really try not to be the type of person who's like always talking about work, but unfortunately that's just like the bulk of what I do, and I'm biased because I like it. So like, you know, that is what I tend to talk about probably too much, but or I just try not to talk at all, so I don't end up talking about it. So I try to hedge that, but you know, when I would talk work with people, or people would just talk work with themselves, and they would always talk about, oh, you know, George from accounting, I can't stand that dude, or oh my god, you know, Katie from marketing, she's so ridiculous and all this stuff, and I'm always just like, oh, I don't have those shared experiences. You know, I mean, like, look, and as I've been there longer and longer, like, there are people I recognize who I don't work as well with, or you know, whom I maybe recognize, like, we're probably, like, not compatible as friends outside of work, or we wouldn't be, but like that's fine. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even those people are like few and far between. And
Yeah.
and even then, like,
And they're not that bad, right?
they're not that bad. Exactly. We get along. Like, we're totally cool. And so many of them too are like really like are friends of mine. Like, we talk outside of work. Like we get along really well, and it's great. So, you know, there's the one who I've told you about, who you are like the male version of her, and like
So crazy.
It's so crazy. And
The funny part is when you showed me, and I'm just like, I don't see it.
and then the funnier
what
part
you're
is when I showed her you, and she got mad at me because she was like, "This is not me. He has a beard."
The beard?
Which is fair.
Yeah.
But you know, I was working with her for like a year until I realized, oh, that's who you remind me of. You're Mike. Now I get it. But yeah, and as for like balance and stuff, it's definitely not good. Like, I definitely work way too much. I actually just got a bit of a reprimand earlier this week for like working a little like too late. I sent someone an email like in the middle of the night, and I got in trouble for that.
Whoa.
But like,
Yeah, I mean, it is good to be able to like shut it off and be like, all right, you know, no more till the morning. Like, even though
Yeah.
you could do it in the middle of the night, it's like you gotta get some space from it.
So I think for me, no, I don't think, this is what I know, like, my main approach coming into this was, okay, I am going to work like a dog to start out here. I'm going to show everyone I'm here to work. I'm not shying away from anything. Like, I'm really here to work. I'm about it, you know? And granted, another part of it was me knowing, like, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to make plenty of mistakes. Like, I don't really have experience here. I have, like, some tangentially related experience in marketing, but not in PR in particular. It was funny, the woman who hired me, one of our executive vice presidents at the time, the way she described it to our colleagues was, he reached out to me, he had no experience, and we knew we had to hire him. So, you know, there was a recognition that I didn't really have that experience. So I knew, like, I'd make mistakes, and I wanted to be like, if I do make a mistake, like, I'm not going to be precious about, oh, well, but it's, you know, but it's 6 o'clock right now, so I'll get to it tomorrow. It's like, no, if I made the mistake, I will rectify it, if, you know, within reason, if I'm able to.
Yeah. You have good work ethic.
I try to, you know. And so I did that. My approach was like, let me do that for a year. And hopefully by then everyone will know what I'm about and that I won't shy away from stuff. And look, you know, that doesn't work for everyone. I also like to think I'm very respectful of people who don't take that approach. I have a lot of colleagues on the West Coast. And, like, I remember I would, like, send them messages at, like, 11:50 a.m. Eastern, which is, like, we generally start our day at 9, so that's like 10 minutes before they're technically supposed to be on, but they're usually on before it, you know, or whatever. So I'd send them something like 10 minutes before and just be like, hey, super, don't check till you're logged on, but just want to flag this now because, like, I just came across it. And they'll be like, we log on in 10 minutes, it's fine. Like, or, you know, I've been on for an hour, like, don't worry about it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the nature of PR is generally more of an always on type of thing. So I try to be respectful of people like that. But yeah, like the balance, like, probably not ideal. But then also, like, you know, so I kind of took, not like I took my foot off the gas, but I was just kind of like, eventually after a year or so, I realized, like, all right, people know, like, you know, they know what I'm about and it's all good. But like I said, I also, for the most part, like what I do. So there's that. It's not, you know, the worst thing.
When you really like what you do, it's actually hard not to do it.
Yeah.
So if they're like, oh, go home for the day, and you're like, wait, I don't want to go yet. Or like,
Yeah.
I don't want to shut it off. I got like...
And don't get me wrong, like, I do like my job a lot. I'd rather be playing video games, though, or whatever it is I do. Not like I even play video games, but, you know, I'd rather be doing something else, like scrolling through Instagram or fingerboarding or whatever, playing guitar.
Yeah.
But, you know, as far as the job goes, I do like it. And you know, another part of it before, it's like being hard to shut off of, like, all right, if I don't do this now, I'm going to have to do it tomorrow.
Right.
So just wanting to get it out of the way. But I don't know, there's an approach there. And then earlier this year, I got put on a project that took a lot out of me. That was like, I mean, that project, like, just became a behemoth. It took on a life of its own. Like, we don't have to hash it out too much, but basically it was like, I was getting, like, very little sleep. It was like, I'd work, log off, take a nap, wake up, work again, eat dinner, go to sleep, and then, like, kind of do that again. That went on for, like, about a month or two. I ended up, like, losing weight. That was really bad. And that, like, completely, like, rejiggered my approach to life. Like, I'm, like, just now, like, getting back to normal of, like, oh, wait, like, this is what life is supposed to be like again.
Yeah.
Like I was like sleeping on my couch during that time because like I was like getting no sleep. I wanted to make sure like I wasn't sleeping in a really comfy bed that I wouldn't like oversleep or anything.
Oh man.
So that was really bad. That went on for probably about a month, give or take, a month and some change, month and a half or whatever.
You got to be careful of stuff like that, not to overdo it. And then if you do overdo it, you have to like refine that balance of like how it's supposed to be, so you don't get stuck in those patterns of like overworking or sacrificing an aspect of your life for another aspect of your life, whether it's work or sleep or anything else.
Yeah. And look, as a new worker, I like that is a balance I'm finding. And actually recently, like as of fairly recent, the past couple months or so, like I think I've really found that, because I think I have some legs to stand on now to be like, hey, look, you guys know that I really am down to work for the most part, but I can't just say yes to everything. And I had a colleague recently sit me down, basically be like, you can't be working as much as you are. Like it's getting, for your own sake, it's just getting out of hand.
You're lucky that you have people around you that say that, because some people will be like, oh yeah, he's down. And
exactly.
like they'll never think further than that. They won't know that it's like impacting you.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll keep asking you to do more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very, like I said, I'm very fortunate with the people I work with.
Yeah.
And that exchange, and those several exchanges I had, like that just kind of gave me the confidence I needed to be like, okay, they know that I'm down to work. Like they know that when I say no to stuff now, that it's not just me being lazy or me just like not doing work fast. Like they know that I'm saying no for a reason. Mm-hmm. And then lately I've been a lot better with that. Like I actually work within my work hours. I haven't really been, I'm off today. I haven't really been doing anything like on my phone or whatever, like checking emails or whatever. So, it's good. Like people always say like, that like, about the balance thing. It's like, oh yeah, the balance is off or whatever. But like, I can't totally blame my company for that if I'm not the one saying no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I also try not to be the person who's always like, oh, I'm just so busy all the time and busy with business and all this stuff, I feel like that kind of get to me. But I mean, like we also like, there are busy seasons too. I mean, there's
certain times when you have to work super hard, and there's certain times when you gotta chill back out.
Like that project that I was on a few months ago, like I said, I do sports PR, or a lot of my clients are sports PR, or some of them. It was during the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Do you think they're
that's not all year.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, if you're an accountant, you're going to be working 7 days a week in April, you know what I mean, during tax season. Like that's just how it is, but it's not how it is all year. So,
Exactly. But even when those things come up, you got to figure out how you can like not get overwhelmed by it.
Exactly, yeah. And it's a learning process. I'm happy to be going through it. And I'm confident that I'll find the right balance eventually.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, I got to say like your overall approach to all that stuff is really solid. Like the way that you view it, between the hard work and the like realistic view of it, and like, I don't know, kind of like proving that you're worth it, that you're capable, and then also being like, I have the strength to say no when it's too much stuff to do, and like, not be a pushover, but also, putting in good work for those that you work for, and then also knowing what the boundaries are. Yeah. And finding those boundaries at least.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. Super good. I think we're pretty much done talking about work. We got some cool stuff out in there, and now we get to go deep into the psychology, perhaps psychiatry of Henry.
Perhaps psychosis.
Yeah. I might have to diagnose you with some things, prescribe you a few things.
Happily.
Yeah. Not really, but let's say, what's your biggest mistake in life?
Biggest mistake in life. I would say I probably have like several fairly big regrets.
Let's go into each one of them.
Well,
or you can just pick one or two.
Yeah. So one would be, and it's funny because like I've put thought into this in the past of like, I don't know, it's annoying like when people are always like, oh yeah man, I have no regrets, and it's like, damn man, you want some of mine? Like bro, like I've plenty to go around, and I obviously get the sentiment is like just to not harp on them, stew on them so they ruin your life. But like, I think it's totally valid to like look at like recognize mistakes you made and regrets you have, and just kind of use that as like, you know, a learning point going forward. But anyway, so one was probably being and there's like one thing I'll preface this with saying is like all those like big regrets in my head are actually like grand scheme of things like really not big ones at all, which I'm so blessed about. Like there's nothing I don't think that was like really super pivotal that would have really like changed my life, or like, you know, that anyone's like safety or health or well-being was like on the line because of it. So like I'm so fortunate about that. Like, so I'm going into this knowing that these are really not anything world changing by any means. One was probably when I was like in like early high school, I dated someone who like, and we only dated for like a month or two or something, and I broke up with her, and it, you know, I forget even why I did, but I feel like I probably shouldn't have done that. That was early high school. Like, I'm not saying like it's not like we'd be together today or whatever or anything like that, but like, I don't know, I think it was just like rude and weird of me to just like end it for whatever reason I did. You know, I'm sure at the time I had whatever reason I did, but I feel like if we were to keep that going for however much longer that we did, like, I don't know, I feel like we would have both learned like more about, not to put words in her mouth obviously, but like I feel like we would have both like learned more about ourselves, and like, I don't know, it probably would have just put me on like a more in touch trajectory for the rest of my high school life at the very least, which obviously was some pretty formative years. So that was one, and I just remember like after doing that, like I just regretted it really deeply for a long time, and then we actually ended up talking again, which ended up falling through, and that was like a very painful time in my life, that, you know, you get through however you do. So I don't know, I like, now that I'm like further and further removed from it, like I don't know how much it would really have changed things, but like if for no other reason to like have spared me from like hurt down the line, like I said, like I think most of the regret just stems from like not even knowing why I did that, or, you know, so that's probably one of them. The other one, this one's like a little more like specific and weird, is I like the way it works in Jersey is you can get your license at 17 if you like have X amount of driving hours with like a license, whatever, like a licensed person, or you can wait till you're 17 and a half and you can just get your license. You have to pass the road test and stuff, but you know what I mean. Excuse me. And I took the latter approach where like I didn't do the driving school and everything, and it, you know, it was only 6 months. Realistically, it was all just a blip in the matrix. But I just remember there were like so many big things in my life at that point where I was like, it would have been so nice to like been driving for it. Granted, like I had a brother who I was best friends with, who I still do, but like, you know, at the time, like, and you know, he was driving, so I could get rides from him. Almost all my friends drove because I was a year ahead in school, so all my friends were older than me. So there was, you know, that. But I don't know, I just, like, you know, you could ask me what those specific things were and I wouldn't even be able to tell you. But I just remember it, like, at that time being like, wow, those are, like, really, like, this is such a regret. I totally should have done that. So those are, like, two big ones that I just remember, like, throwing in a list in my head of, like, these are some of my biggest regrets because, like, they were, like, so, they both so easily could have, I guess that's part of it, too. It was, like, they both so could have easily been achieved.
Yeah.
You know, that's like why they might stick in my craw the way they do, so to speak.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like, I have a lot of thoughts about both of them. Like, for example, I didn't start driving till I was like 18 or something, even though I could have at like 16 here. 'Cause like I felt like I just wasn't ready. Like, I was just like, there's no way a kid like me could be driving a car. Like, it doesn't even sound safe. Like,
yeah.
Like, I really recognized I was like not quite feeling up to it. Like, it just sounded like too much. So I just waited, and then eventually I felt comfortable with doing it. And then once I got my license, I was like 18 something, and then I could just drive like by myself. I could just drive somewhere, and it was like so new and different, and I was like, I can't believe I didn't do this earlier. Like, this is amazing. I don't have to call Isaac and ask him to drive me somewhere. Like, I can just drive anywhere. This is amazing. And then I was like, well, you know, there was a reason I didn't do it before. Yeah. And, you know, if I felt like I wasn't safe to drive yet, I probably would have crashed. Like, because I wasn't even ready to be confident. Because I started it when I, like, you know, nothing happened where I was like, okay, now I'm ready. But it was just like, I just felt ready, you know, as I matured a little bit more or whatever. So it's like you got to go at your own pace for these types of things, because you never know exactly why it is you did or didn't do a thing. But in the end, it's like you got exactly right here where you are because of every choice you made, including the ones you think are mistakes or regrets, which is kind of why people say, like, I have no regrets, because it's like, well, if I were to change that, I wouldn't be right here. So as long as right here is a good place, it's like, it's not quite a regret. Like, and I see your point too, where it is just like, no, but it is a regret. You know, it's something you think about. It could have been different and this and that. But I would challenge you to view it as like, that's how it had to happen.
Yeah, totally. You know, like I say, you know, it's a balance of like recognizing like I should have done it this way, and also realizing like, okay, but I didn't, and now next time I will.
Exactly.
And you can't let either of those torment you.
Yeah, there was one time when I didn't go to an event in Germany that like I was gonna go to. I was like pretty set on going, and then I just like canceled the whole trip and didn't go to Germany. And you can imagine I was bummed about it. And on the day of the event, and the videos were coming out, and it was just like so painful, you know. And now I look back on it, I'm like, I'm happy I didn't go. Like, I wasn't supposed to be there, you know. It's like, I forget what happened when I was home during that, but something good happened also, like around here, and I totally would have missed that. And it's like these little things where it's like, in the moment it feels huge. It's like, oh, I'm not there. Like, all my friends are there. Everyone's having fun. It would be great to go, which it would be. Those are all real, you know. I'm not saying that's like that sucked for the weekend, but it led to everything. Like, who knows? Maybe this podcast wouldn't be happening because like my whole entire thought trajectory would be moved over a little because of different experiences I had for those 3 days. And like, I don't know. It just like, you got to get to the point where you realize like everything kind of happens for a reason, even if just the reason is that it leads to the next thing, you know. Even if you don't think there's like a higher reason, that doesn't matter. It's just like the reason something happens is because it's what needed to happen for like the girl that you broke up with. You had some kind of a gut feeling or some influence somewhere that maybe you can't pinpoint that made you do that. And maybe you take something from that into your next relationship, or into like a relationship that's meant to work, and you learn something that you'll apply it to there, where it's like, I don't know, maybe if you would have stayed with her and it wasn't right and you tried to force it, something more painful could have happened down the line that you can't foresee now or back then, but you don't know. And it's just like another thing where it's like, it happened the best way it could have happened, even though it sucked.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
And, you know, obviously, the further removed you get from any mistake you made, unless it's like a really, really horrible one, and like I said, both of which mine are not, you know, the further removed you get, the easier it is to like come to terms and, you know, recognize, like you said, but where I'm at's okay, and, you know, wouldn't have been this way otherwise.
Yeah, so, totally.
I'm trying to think of like other big mistakes about. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
Nothing substantial. I was just gonna say, you could have like, I don't know, if you had followed either of those other paths differently, like, who knows, maybe you would have like got out of fingerboarding or something, like, or like ended up as a whole different career. Like, little things can change big things down the line, because it's like where you go in one day and what you're exposed to and where that brings you next is like, it can change the whole thing. You could have discovered like, oh, I like this weird thing I never heard of, like, and instead it's like, no, you're not doing that because you didn't come across it.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's funny when you think of like things that you're like into or whatever, or things you like, even small things, and you're just like, oh, how did I even like this again? Oh, because, you know, I saw it here. I just
like, oh, I was at the beach that day and somebody mentioned it, like, you know, something so random where it could have been like, you didn't go to the beach that day and you wouldn't have got that.
I will say probably another regret somewhere on this list is like just like not making more time for, honestly, for like fingerboard friends and trips. Because when I was in college, granted 2 years I lost mostly to COVID, like and mostly just kind of like, you know, kicking it with my family and stuff. But like the first year I was dorming, and I was in a relationship, so like most weekends I like spent with her, and then eventually we broke up, and then I spent those weekends like with my friends on campus. But after that, and this is when I started driving more and more, like sophomore year, which was 2018 and 2019, like every weekend, if not every other weekend, I was like going to see my friends, visiting them at schools, like I was doing something. I spent, like, there was one friend in particular, I spent so much time at his college, like, and we just like, just like have fun and do fun stuff. And then like, and I wish I squeezed probably a little more time there into like trips out here, or like, to go see like Ryan or whoever, or even like Kevin H, who we always talk about, who was really close to me, and like him and I really didn't hang out in person all too much. And it's like, there was probably no reason for that, except for the reason being like, if you hang out with people more and more, like that's just who your mind goes to. So, once again, that's like one of those regrets where it's like, there's like kind of a reason for it. And, once again, not world changing by any means, or however you want to look at it. But, yeah, that's probably something I wish I did a little bit more of. And I'm trying to do more of it now, especially as I like fall into a better work-life balance of like, having my free time and like using it to do stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good one that you can just do now.
Exactly, yeah. Which, here and trying to do way more of it, trying to stay in greater touch with them. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. It's like silly to have a regret that like you aren't actively trying to fix. You know what I mean? Like that, it kind of makes no sense.
That's a good point too. I mean, there's other fingerboard events around and stuff like.
Exactly, and
you can go to like Jacob's event and stuff.
Who's that? I don't know.
His events in like a couple of weeks. It's like somewhere around in Mass, but it's like kind of far from here, but it's doable.
So I mean, that's another part of it too, is just like, because I'm fairly out of the scene, I don't see a lot of those. But like I know there's one in Jersey coming. Like anytime there's an event in Jersey,
cool.
For years I'm there. You know what I mean? Like me and Kevin went to one of those. Like, so I definitely try to do stuff like that. I know there's one in Jersey in like next month or in 2 months or something like that. I'm going to that one for sure. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I wouldn't be able to stand listening to someone who's like, I know, man. Oh, I wish I made all these times for my friends or whatever. And they're like, word, there's an event in 3 weeks. Like, you want to pull up? And they're like, oh, well, no, I don't really feel it. It's like, all right, then what are you even saying? It's clearly not that much
that's
regret.
why you're not going.
Yeah. But anyway, that ladders back to just my disdain for complainers and whatnot. But that's a whole different thing. But yeah, those are probably my main mistakes.
Yeah. What do you got against complainers?
They complain all the time. Their energy.
That sounds like a complaint, Henry.
I'm complaining about those who complain. You're right. It's a horseshoe theory. No.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a cool one. You told me that before we were recording.
Yeah.
Tell them about the horseshoes.
The horseshoe theory is a theory, which I think is like largely a political one, but it applies elsewhere. Where the more, the idea is that there might be two extremes, but the further apart they become, the closer they actually are. Like, with at least like with like more macro. Overarching thoughts that they share.
Yeah.
So, there are complainers and there are people who hate complainers, but the thing is, eventually, if you have to talk about it, then you just,
then you're complaining.
Which is always, it's always like the hard part to navigate. But yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, it's a really cool thing to think about, like socially, politically, whatever it is that you're surrounded by. If you look at that horseshoe and you're just like. Yeah. Everybody needs to chill, most things need to go kind of more towards that top, because if you're down there and you're extreme this, you're extreme that, you're almost the same. You might think you're opposites, you might feel like you're opposites, but to somebody else on the outside, they just see you as like both ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean you become the problem you think you're fighting, which is
right.
Yeah, silly.
I think it's maybe Buddhist. The thing where they have like the chain hanging and they're like, if you push something away too much, it's like pushing the chain away and then you
let go.
It hits you in the face after instead of just staying in the middle in the first place.
Interesting.
It's a really cool analogy to like, the more you fight something, the more you're gonna engage with it, versus if you just let it be somewhat, it's just gonna stay there and it's not gonna be in your face hitting you.
I like that.
And then same, if you bring something too close to you, it's going to go away from you. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're trying to force a relationship, let's say, and you're like, oh, I love you so much, please don't go. And they're like, I'm out, because it's like you're pulling them so hard when there's a little resistance, and that's pulling that chain towards you, and it's just going to go away. So it's like, just be chill about things and let it naturally work out, And if it does, then it stays right there where it needs to be.
Yeah, there's another old adage I like of a similar ilk where it's those who mind don't matter, those who matter don't mind, that type of thing. You know,
Yeah.
if you care so much, it's annoying, and people, it's not an energy people tend to like being around. And those who are of influence or are of good company, just when that's actually who they are, it's just how they are, and that's all there is to it.
Yep. Relaxing.
Yeah.
That's all it is, practically relaxing.
Just vibing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness? Good question. I will say, I'll think of an answer. I'm not thinking of an answer, not because I'm like, oh wow, I have no weaknesses. Damn. I just can't think of one off the hand, but I will. But one time I got asked this question during an interview for an internship when I was in college, and I didn't have a question and answer prepared, and so I gave some sort of BS answer or whatever, and I was and they were like, oh okay, but no, give a real answer or whatever, and I was like, oh, so I couldn't think of anything, so I said, if you want, I could give you my mom's number. I'm sure she could tell you plenty. And they
Did
laughed.
you get the job?
I did not get the job, but I got to the next round of interviews.
Okay.
So that at least didn't completely disqualify me. Anyway, greatest weakness, honestly, would probably just be the person it's more internal. Look, I'm sure you could talk to plenty of people and ask what my weaknesses are, and they give you them. But for me personally, it's probably me grappling. It's not so much a grapple. I'm trying to let it be pretty fluid. I'm just figuring out exactly who I want to be, who I want to be and when and all that stuff, and that, finding that balance of not being complacent, but also not trying to force everything into a place where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest weakness. I'm not sure, and I guess the years will tell how much that is hampering me at the moment, or perhaps it's not. But I feel and maybe that weakness is even the wrong word, but just
Do you find that you're struggling with that? Do you have concrete examples to illustrate it?
That's the thing. Not really. I guess I've always been someone who's big on, generally don't, well, actually, I want to word this properly, because I try not to be the person who's yeah, don't care what anyone ever has to say about you, doing your own thing. Of course, yes, to a degree, but also we do live in a world where people perceive you, and those perceptions lead to whatever things that may be.
Yeah.
We were talking about showering the other day. It's it shouldn't always be a world of, and I know this is not what you believe, but it shouldn't be a world of yeah, if you don't want to shower, just don't shower, man. Let it be. It's no, there's also people are gonna have to walk by you and smell you, and if you have a job interview, if you go on a date and you just reek, these are not good things. If you really don't care, you really don't care. Fine, but
it has implications.
But it has implications, and sometimes real ones, So yeah, do I have any super concrete examples of that? I don't think so. I think it's just more of an ongoing thing of just an ongoing. I don't even like using the word struggle, because I don't know if I would call it that. I think it's just a part of life and growing up.
A mild thing.
Yeah.
Kind of just trying to imagine if your place within everything is the right one or needs adjustment.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
And I think too, and not to deviate too off track, but I just think this is interesting. A buddy of mine in the Marines, I remember one time he was telling me, and my brother's in the military too, a lot of my friends are, so I hear this refrain a lot, and everyone says it. They go, complacency kills, and ironically, this friend, he goes, complicity kills. And I was like, complacency actually is the word, and he was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Anyway, they all say complacency kills, which there's certainly truth to, especially when you are, literally in a combat the industry of combat, and that's your job, and if you just fall into a rote routine of this is what I do, and you're not vigilant or whatever, that can actually have very deadly implications. Yes, but what I've noticed in the regular world lately is, for a lot of people, really it's ambition that kills. And what I mean by that is like, it doesn't mean not to be ambitious. It just means what I see so much of in like people I like love and care about or whatever is people who put such an onus on themselves to do the best, be amazing, be awesome, and be a person that they may not be wired to be, or they may not just be that yet because they're young or they're just whatever the circumstance is. And then when they are not what they are trying to be, they're miserable. And, you know...
Yeah, do you think it comes from comparing to, like, an unrealistic standard or to a different person or, you know, something that they're not?
Yeah, I mean, not to just rehash, like, a boring conversation about social media, but, like, that's obviously a huge part of it. You know, just seeing what other people are accomplishing and you're not, or, you know, seeing the one thing that they're sharing that, you know.
Yeah, and you don't know what they had to do to get there and how tough it may have been or how happy or sad they really are. You don't know. You just see the highlight.
Yeah, or, you know, or whatever benefits that they had to work with that maybe you don't have or whatever, which, you know, not necessarily an excuse, but just, you know, an information as to why. Yeah. And I don't know, I see that a lot, and I think that's, like, making a lot of people really upset. And I can see why. You know, so, yeah, and can complacency kill? It can, in the way is if you're just too content with where you are and you can be doing so much better, realistically, it probably won't kill you, but you can end up chewing a lot of time away that you obviously don't get back. But I think really more often, I mean, I guess what my mind goes to also is like really successful business people, like who work in finance or whatever, and they make boatloads of money, they work and they're super busy with business and all that stuff. And, you know, they like reach the model of success or whatever, and then they end up like killing themselves or something because they're just so miserable and they can't, you know, that ambition literally killed them.
They were working towards the wrong goal, perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe money wasn't what they needed.
Exactly, but they think it is. Or
everyone thinks money is what they need because you do need money to some extent, no matter who you are. So then you could say, okay, well then I need more. You know, like more will help or whatever, and then if
you don't have that, you're a failure, and you know you're not good enough to live or to do whatever. So I don't know. I think that's bad, and I obviously think that's bad. And then I just see, how many people like, how many friends of mine like struggle with stuff like that, and they, you know, and so like, then what I grapple with is just like, okay, like there's obviously like certain like traits I want to like, you know, have eventually, and there's like things I want to aspire to, but like I'm not gonna, but I don't want to just like force it and, you know, make it turn it into something that it shouldn't be. Because I guess in a lot of things I see too is like the people who are like attempting this or attempting certain things is like they force it in such a way where like to me it comes off as like unnatural or awkward or like or you know, just like, why is this even something that you want to like do?
What are some of those things you see in the future for yourself to aspire to?
So honestly, and this is like the funny thing too with me about like, even before we're talking about like hardworkingness or whatever. Yeah. Honestly, like I'm really like I definitely would consider myself to be a very hard worker, and like, and I'm happy to work hard and all that. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I'm really not. Most of my ambitions, I definitely have like some very macro, like general career ambitions and whatnot. But for the most part, most of my like real tangible ambitions are mostly like familial, like, you know, having like a really happy family, like a child or plural, whatever, that I can like spend time with and be present with, and, you know, who I can like offer a good picture of like what a loving mother-father relationship looks like, and, you know, a strong family unit, what cousins look like, and that whole thing. Mm-hmm. That's probably the stuff that I see the most of. I mean, I've never been, like I said before, I'm not someone who spends a lot of money. I'm not someone who cares about like the car I have. Like, yeah, that's cool. You know, like I'd like a nice house to some degree, but I'd also like to be in a position where if anything ever goes wrong with my family, that it won't be, you know, it won't be a horrible issue. Like that it will be able to be managed, or at least the best we can.
Yeah, that's cool, because I think a lot of times people are thinking like work is everything or something, and like, you know, what you just demonstrated is like, you know, the thing that really matters to you is not like just work, work, work. It's like family. Like the goal is to have a family and to have kids and be happy, and like, I mean, happy is like, a funny goal. You don't want to, it's not just happiness, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just a comfortable family that's mostly good, functional, whatever. And it's like, to have that as your goal, I feel like whatever you're doing, you can think of like, does this bring me closer or farther from that? And it's so obvious. Anything you think of, it should be obvious if it's like a good thing for that goal versus not. And then you can kind of check like, am I going in the general right direction, So it's like, if you're working too hard at work and then you imagine you having a kid, it's like, how would this affect my kid? It wouldn't be good. I have to figure out how to not overdo myself at work so I could have time for the kid and family and wife and everything that goes along with having a house and all those things. So it's like figuring out those balances now while you're young and before you have those things means that once you get to those things, you've been already mindful of it coming up to it. Like, that's kind of how I feel I am right now, like getting ready for that stage where it's like, if I had a kid right now, how would it be? And like, what would I still have to adjust in order to make it the best that it could be? And yeah, so I feel like you're on the way to that too, like, for sure, just being mindful of it. Because a lot of people straight up are not mindful of that at all. And they have a kid, like, you can have a kid at any age you want. You don't have to wait till you're older, but it's like, if you do it when you're younger, how long are you preparing for it beforehand, and what things are important to you? And, they'll work differently. There's advantages to being young and having a kid. You have way more energy. You can handle a lot of things really well. And like, or if you wait till you're older and you have a little bit more experience with different things, and either way works totally. But it's like, wherever you are right now, it's like you have your eye on the prize, but you're not forcing it. You're not rushing it.
Yeah. And that's like the biggest thing. And that's the thing, I feel like the way I talked about it is this, as if this is like some sort of like ongoing, like always on my mind type of thing, which it really isn't. But it is just something like, I guess when I really notice it is what's just like, when I'm particularly cognizant of it is just when I do observe it in other people, and then I just kind of go through in my head of like, am I doing this the right way? I think I am. And my whole thing is like, look, the approach I've been taking is like, look, I'm confident that it is going to work out how I want, and I'm patient, and I'm willing to play the long game, and that's fine with me. But, sometimes, as with everything, when you're on a long-term goal, sometimes there are just things that you try to steer you off track, and you just kind of have to look into it really quick and be like, is that the right direction? Probably not. And then you keep pushing.
Yeah.
But either way, like even the whole familial thing, wife and kids, big to it. But also, I mean, that really just extends to even the family I currently have now. I mean, I want to make sure, I just want to make sure that I'm able to like offer up that love and be a loving family member, as I think I should. Even lately, I've been, the past few months, I really put in, probably more than that actually, the past year or so, I put in a resolve to like really just see my family a lot more. And now weekends, I really make the time to go see certain family members that I, not like I haven't seen them a lot, that I have, but like just really trying to be more intentional with it. The way I look at it is that there's like two ways to look at it. There's, your family's only here once, and when they're gone, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, you should spend the time with them now while you can. The other school of thought I see is, you're only young once. So you should do the things that you can only do when you're young now, because then once you're older and you can't do them anymore, you don't get that time back.
Yeah, you can put both of those together.
You can.
I don't even think those are separate, or they have to be separate. To me, I'm like, it's both. Why not do both?
Well, you can do both. But with everything, as you do one, we all have a finite amount of time to work with.
Yeah, it pulls towards one or the other, kind of, for sure.
And it's important to strike that balance. Yeah. As I told you, that's like my go-to word. But yeah, I mean, that's why I like to think I'm pretty much doing now. Last week I saw my aunt and uncle, so to speak. This week I'm here,
Yeah.
Or weekend, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, I think those are like it's also a matter for me, like I said, is like, that is like a very specific focus of mine right now. So like, I want it to be the main thing I'm doing. Like, I want it to be what I'm doing more of than that. Like right now, that's not something I want to split time with. Like, I really want to be all in on being a good family member right now. And not saying that if you do that, you're a bad family member. That's obviously not what I'm saying. But that's just been my approach now. And look, in a year, and I can always change it. If 3 months from now I say, like, never mind, this isn't working, I want to go to bars and stuff and have fun, then I can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have to, like, commit to something and then stick with it just because you said you did it in order to not feel like you made a wrong choice. Or, like, you can change it day by day. Today I want to see my friends, tomorrow I want to see my family. Like, that's why I'm saying it can be both. And like you said, balance. It can be a balance leaning towards one or the other, and it's going to shift over time. But I think that's really cool that you're mindful of your family, because I feel like a lot of people our age and younger especially forget about their family, because, like, you've been with them your whole life since you were little and you grew up with your parents, and then it's like you get this freedom and you can move out and you can get a job, and then it's just like, oh, cool, I can do all these things. And it's like, wait, don't forget about your parents, and don't forget about whoever else you were around in your family that you grew up with, your grandparents, your cousins, your uncles, whatever it is. It's like, spend that time with them while you can and whenever you can, like, not even just because one day they won't be there, but even just because it's like, those are relationships that are totally different than the ones you share with your friends. Me and you won't have the same relationship that, like, you and your dad have, or you and your uncle or cousin. It's just different. No matter how much time we spend together, it's like we don't have those, like, 20 plus years going back, where it's like they can offer you something different than what I can offer you, as in terms of perspectives and ideas and bonding and fun and laughing. Like, it's just different stuff. So people should all, as long as they have good relationships or are able to fix them, if they're not, it's like, family is number one. Go for it. Always do your best to do that. And also, I think, I don't know, maybe this will help somebody who's, like, on the fence about it, but I think to be the best family member, you have to be the same as, I think, to be the best friend or whatever else that you can be to people, you have to be authentically you. And then you don't even have to try to be a good anything. If you're just you, authentic, it's like that pulls in 80-90% of your effort. Is just you already, there's very little else you have to do besides being there and being you. It's like, if you're available and you're you and you're not making up or pretending to be somebody else, like, everything real happens when you're real. So if you're faking it and then they give you advice, that advice is going towards something fake that wasn't even, like, you didn't tell them the real problem. They gave you advice for something that was, like, you tried to beat around the bush. And, like, I've seen that with close friends. It's like, they told me about this really bad problem they had, and then I gave them advice. Half a year later, I find out that's not what the real problem was, and it was something so much worse they didn't want to tell me. And then my advice meant nothing. Their whole thing got worse, and it was all just like, you gotta be real.
And that's why, for years, like, probably, like, the main mantra that I've lived by is, don't do anything you're ashamed to tell people about, because that's, like, good. It's just, like, the main way to be. I mean, like, even when we were talking about, like, leading into this podcast, and I was just saying how I'm, like, pretty open book, and I'll pretty much talk about anything, because even the things that I've, like, done that I'm not, like, proud of, like, like, those are still things that happened, and I'm willing to take accountability for that, and take my lumps and everything. But it makes it so much easier to be honest. It makes it so much easier to be, like, clear and open with people.
Totally.
I mean, look, that's not to say that there aren't things that are still private in people's lives, but if you have, like, that's why I'm pretty open book, because anything that I'm done, that's just kind of how I go by it. If I think that I'm going to have to hide it from someone, I probably shouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely. One time I heard a quote, somebody said, like, don't say words that you wouldn't want tattooed on your skin. And when I remember that, it hits hard, because I'm still just like, I'm not quite there, It's like, I'm not, like, saying too much mean things about people or something, but once in a while it's like you're talking about something and you're like, just like, oh wow, if that was tattooed on my skin, like, that would be kind of shameful, It's like, and it just goes to show, like, you're always kind of evolving, but it's like, if you can really perfect your speech in terms of, like, respectfulness and your approach and your outlook to everything on, like, what's really, like, proper in terms of, like, realness, but also, like, I don't know, it just, like, puts you in your place or something, kind of. It's the same as, like, don't do something you know, like what you said, and it's just like, don't do something you wouldn't want to tell someone, let's say. Don't say something you wouldn't want others to hear you say or something. So yeah,
Totally.
definitely. Those are like really good things to be inspired by. And, you know, if you mess up once in a while, it's like, well, you at least know you messed up.
Yeah.
Because
and
you
it
have
happens.
that as a frame of reference.
Yeah, everyone's
Sure.
fallible, and you know, I think the important part is just being accountable about it. And like I said, it's the long game. I think if you know, if you're generally an honest person who doesn't do bad things, or you know, with as infrequently as humanly possible, you know, then you know, maybe it's not going to take a month, but you know, in the aggregate of 5-10 years or whatever, people will look to you or look at you as, you know, someone who's just down the middle and, you know, is real. And, you know, you can know that when they're getting to you, like when they're speaking to you, like you're getting them for the most, like, you know, for almost all they are.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So like, I mean, you were saying before, like, what are some things that I like look for in my future? Like that would be like one of them. It's like, I want everyone to know, like, that, like, you know, I'm honest and open. Like that's like a way I'd want to be perceived. You know, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. I'm 23.
You might already be there.
Yeah, maybe.
You
know,
maybe you could improve it somewhat, but I think you're already in that realm. Like,
Then perfect.
at least to me, I feel like I can just tell you whatever, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's another thing is I always want to be a good listener. I feel like that's so important, and I feel like a lot of people don't practice active listening, and everyone wants to get their word in edgewise. Which, granted, like I feel like I've probably done a lot of that today, but I like to think this is a bit of a different setting because it's literally a podcast. But like just in general, of like, you know, everyone wants to get their word, and everyone wants to be considered like the wise person with the sagely wisdom to say. But like, you know, I mean, not for nothing, you don't get that wisdom without listening either. It's just important to like.
You get it from listening, if anything.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've definitely got better with that over the years, and like I've seen like certain people that are just like, they will interrupt you before you finish saying what you're saying just so they could say something that they thought of, and it's like, yeah, they're excited to contribute to the conversation, and once in a while interrupting is necessary because it's just too awesome and you got to say something before you forget. But you know, like usually interrupting is just like not the best thing to do, and I try to do it as little as possible. Like I said, we all do it to some degree, and it's okay, like in small amounts, but when there's something serious, you want to really just listen, you know? There's going to be time you can talk right after anyways, so like slow
exactly.
down.
I mean, unless you're talking to someone who doesn't give you that time. But in which case, like, then,
that's
you know,
tricky.
either dominate the conversation if you want to and be like, all right, then, you know, we're both doing this game, or just let them say their piece and realize, okay, this isn't someone I want to be around then at length.
Bingo.
You know?
It goes that way sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. Next subject.
That's something I have plenty of thoughts on. I can talk about that for, you know, till the sun goes down.
What else you got? No, that's really good. Then keep going. Even.
No, I mean, like, interrupting me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like these are the types of discussions that I made this podcast for, really. Like, I love this stuff.
I guess, like, I don't know, I see a lot of friends, like, or a lot of people, or not like I see a lot of them, but I just, like, see the ones that I do who, like, they want to be perceived as, like, the very wise, like, adulty one who knows all. But then when I, like, see how they go about it, like, to me, it's just so artificial. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, we actually kind of want the same thing. Like, we kind of want the same thing, but, like, we actually kind of don't, you know? Because, like, I feel like my way of getting there is, like, the truest one. Of course I think that, though, because it's my idea.
Everybody probably thinks that,
but...
But it's also, where are you at this point, and where have you, like, you know, something, you think what you're doing right now is the best because you've probably tried similar or different things that didn't work out as well, and then you kind of developed it into like, oh, it should be this way, this would work even better. And so it's like, I think we all, in the given moment, at any moment, are like doing our best because it's our best for that time. And so it's fair to have something in your head where you're like, I'm doing this right. But you might not be. You have to be aware that you might not be. But like in this case with the listening and mindfulness, like it's pretty obvious that that's the way to be. Like most of the time, there's no reason
the issue isn't, not to cut you off, but you know, the issue that could be seen with that is just like being a pushover or just being someone who like
Yeah,
lets
no,
people
it's-
talk at them.
It's different, but you have to make sure it doesn't become that.
Of course.
I guess.
But I guess more so what I just mean is like how people can look at that, whereas I look like, it's funny because with me, when I hear someone really like dominating a conversation, it's funny because I feel like I used to be this way with just like being a storyteller, which is ironic too, because I feel like that was like a trait that people liked about me, or at least one that people didn't dislike about me, but I'm even trying to kind of get a little further away from that. But just like when I hear people like take very adamant positions and like get very like, in your face, or not even in your face, like in an aggressive or hostile way, just like as if they like, basically when people take an approach as if they know all, I automatically like take a fighting stance to that, and then I'm just kind of like, I don't buy this, like whatever is going on here, I don't buy this, which I can miss out on stuff too, because like that's something I automatically kind of shut out. But like when I see the person with like, who's a lot more stoic, a lot more silent, and a lot more, you could tell they're taking in and processing, I respect and like admire that approach so much more.
Me too.
Yeah.
I see it as like those people that are like so into the thing and they want all the attention and stuff. I'm like, wow, you still care what people think about you, and it shows.
Yeah, exactly.
It shows a lot. Like you really care what people think about you, and then you're pulling the chain too close, and it's gonna go away. They're gonna dislike you because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's so like, you just gotta chill, like you said, if you're like more stoic or whatever.
And like because of that, like that open listening approach is like, is something I realized too. Is like something I realized a long time ago is I want people to be really, really honest with me, and because of that, I try to be as non-defensive as possible. I try to be as open to what people have to say, both about their own lives or even just like criticism or anything like that. And like it's hard sometimes to like look up the gut of it and like take like your criticisms about yourself, but it's obviously like super important. And
yeah, it's like it helps you grow.
Totally. But once again, finding that balance of not just letting people like insult you or whatever in the name of criticism, and being like, wait, no, this is like, I don't find this valid, and I'm not gonna let you talk to me like that. Yeah. Like, so that's one thing.
Sometimes you have to just be like, no, actually, I'm this way because of this. There's something else. You're not necessarily right with your criticism, or like, here's my why I did that. Maybe we can work it out and figure out if there's something valid to yours and to mine, or maybe I am wrong and you're right. But it's like, you can't just take a criticism and immediately accept it. You have to kind of ponder it for a while.
Exactly. And and sometimes that moment isn't the right time, you know what I mean? Because then you just come off as instantly defensive, and maybe you are, or whatever. But, to basically, like, so because of that, I'd rather, I think I've gotten pretty good at just like, I mean, look, the way I see it is if I have a weakness, I'd love to address it. And, if I'm not letting you tell me what it is, then how am I supposed to work on it, And sure. I have one friend in particular who, I feel like, I guess I see this a lot in him, and I feel like he's really struggling with some insecurity and all this stuff, and perhaps I haven't been there as well as I should have been as a friend lately, but I have my reasons, and whatever those may be, valid or not. But and something about this friend in particular that I realized, and a lot of people are like this, but I think he's like the strongest case, so that's what sticks in my head the most, is like he's someone who, like when I ask a question, like, what do you think about this or whatever, and I almost always hedge it with like, like, and if it's this answer, tell me that too, you know what I mean? Or like I really try and be as like, I remember I was like I'll ask people questions or something, and if I know that if I may be broaching like a sensitive subject, I'll even say like verbatim, I'll be like, and if you don't want to answer, tell me to just go screw myself, you don't have to answer, like, you know what I mean? I really try and guide them in such a way where I'm like, I'm giving you as many indicators as humanly possible that if you give me an honest answer, I will not fight you on it. Like, I will not turn this into something. Like, I will hear you out on it. Like, I try to make that as abundantly as clear as possible, because I notice, if you ask a leading question, or even if you ask a question that can be perceived as leading, most people are just kind of give you the answer you want to hear, especially if it's someone that, if it's someone who's just like a passing conversation. So I have this one friend who will he'll ask questions, like he'll literally ask like, myself and other friends of ours, he'll be like, you know, because I think I'm like an attractive person, and you know, we won't say anything. He'll be like, I mean, you know, do you think I'm attractive? And it's like, my one friend, he was like, wow, you know, literally no friend has ever asked me that before, you know, or stuff like, you know, he'll be like, yeah, because, you know, I think you know, he won't even say I think, you know, he'll be like, you know, because I have you know, I'm an intelligent guy. Do you think I'm intelligent? And it's like,
Whoa,
he literally
interesting.
said, and I remember I specifically responded, I said, first of all, it shouldn't matter if I think you're intelligent or not. But
Which is like, you can perceive that as just being like you're not.
And I was like, but I do,
Okay.
and which is why I said, I was like, but I do think you are, you know.
Yeah.
But and what I just realized though with this person, and like, he does this, like, that's like a very common trend of his, and what I realized is, like I said, he's the strongest case of this, but I see this in so many people too. He wants people to say yes to him. I want people to be honest with me.
Yeah.
You know? And because look, it's easy to get someone to say yes to you. Like I said, especially a passing conversation. If you just give them like something and you really point them in direction of what you want to hear, like, they'll probably, you know, follow along with it.
If you formulate the question in the way that the answer is the one you want.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's not hard, usually.
I would prefer to hear, like, no, you're not intelligent and here's why.
Exactly.
And then I can learn from that.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Even though it's like, you don't want to be told, like, no, you're not intelligent or any positive quality, but in the long term, you really do want to hear that, because it's if that's the real answer that person has, and then you get to hear why and you can do something with it. You can even disagree with it if you feel like it, you know, but to at least hear it, if it's the real answer, then that's the real answer.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I want it. Because
then you can't, A, you can't address it, and B, you go through life like thinking you're being perceived in a completely different way. Because, and then you can point to the proof points of, well, when I asked this person if I was intelligent, they said they thought I was. And it's like, okay, but you probably asked it in a fashion where, or in a manner, you know, there are people who take like, there are some people who take like intimidating approaches to getting the answers they want, obviously. And, you know, the idea is like, if you know, if someone thinks that they're going to have an uphill battle by answering the question honestly, most people like don't want to do that or waste their time doing it. I'm typically someone who actually doesn't care. Like I'll usually just give the honest answer. But, you know, but sometimes if I'm like, this happened before where like I'll be like working on something and someone will like say something to try and like provoke me, and I'll just let it pass because like I have something to do right now. Like if it was it was a Saturday and it was like, you know, 5 p.m. Like sure, I had the time, but right now I don't, so whatever.
Which is important too.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was just like an observation I had this person made me realize it with like a lot of people where like. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to hear the honesty, or they'll say, "Oh no, I want an honest answer," but then the second you give it to them, well, actually, this and the other, it's like, so you know, you're not actually gonna listen to this, like, you know.
Right. Yeah. Or it's like they wanted the honest answer as a gamble of like, hopefully, I hear my answer that I want to hear.
Exactly.
Because then they'll know that it's real and that it double satisfies their like need for that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, wow, that was the real answer. I really am intelligent.
Yeah.
Because I told him he could tell me I wasn't if I wasn't, and he still told me I did. So I am, dude.
Yeah.
And it's just like, then you get the double boost of it, and it's
though I will say, most of the time, the people who ask those questions, they don't even give the qualifier of you can be really honest with me. Like they usually tend to not say that because they don't want to give that out. You know what I mean? They don't want to give you that to say. They just ask the question, and then when you say like, you know, they could be like, all I did was ask the question. I posed the question and I got the answer. So you know, but obviously it's about a lot of its tonality, a lot of its personality, a lot of its making abundantly clear what you say I will listen to. You know, I just thought that was interesting.
So what can people take from this? If you're right now listening and you're the type of person who asks those kinds of questions because you want that kind of validation, and it is important to have validation in certain aspects of our life in certain times, and sometimes we need a lot and sometimes we don't need it anymore, and like, you know, where do they go now? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I would say find validation from the people who matter. You know, something I've realized from this bit of a journey I've been on is people will perceive you however they do. Like, you can make such a conscious effort to do or do not do one thing, and like, just to harken back really quick about this complainer thing, I like, about a year or two ago, I basically like made an entire resolve to just not complain anymore. I was like, I just don't want to do it anymore. There are people in my life who complain a lot, and I despise it. And I was like, I don't want to be that person. And inherently, I am a complainer. Like, I realize that is like something I like to do, and I have done. And I realized like that is not who I want to be. So the way I did it is I just kind of reset myself. I just like anything that even would maybe remotely be considered a complaint, I just stopped doing, which ultimately ended up being like 2 weeks. I barely said like words to people. and after, once you like, and you know, naturally you want to be like, ugh, and then you just have to like quash it. And then after a week or two, it like really kind of reset. That's not to say I'm perfect, and occasionally I might say stuff. And the other thing too is I might not actively complain, but if you ask me what's up or what's wrong, I will give you an answer.
You don't want to hold things in either. There's an important balance, because it's unhealthy to hold things in when they bother you.
Maybe that's actually probably my biggest weakness, because that's probably the biggest struggle that I've had.
What, that you don't complain now?
Yeah, or it's funny because there are probably people listening to this be like, he complains all the time, so who knows?
It depends on your perspective on what could be considered a complaint versus not. But it's like, I heard a thing pretty recently that was very in-depth, and it was talking about how people who never complain like die early. They get a lot of diseases and stuff because they're holding in emotions that need to be vocalized and dealt with. And so you have to find the balance of like, you know, you don't want to be complaining all the time, but if something needs to be complained about or just mentioned, you know, mentioning versus complaining is in the eye of the beholder. So sometimes you just got to do it. So I just want to make sure you're not like overly not complaining in an attempt to not complain so much.
Yeah, the pendulum's definitely swung a bit far, but it's because I don't want to be perceived as a complainer. And what I realized from this process is,
so you still care about what people think about you?
Well, like I said, I care about what the people I care about think about me.
Yeah.
You know, like the right people, so to speak. And I remember,
I'm like half joking, because everybody, obviously, you have to.
Yeah.
That's important.
Exactly. And like that's the thing. If some random person thinks I'm a complainer, like some random dude on the street, like then I don't really care. But if it's like a manager of mine at work who thinks which this is not the case, but like let's say my manager at work thought I was a complainer like that, or my colleagues, or you know.
Yeah, you wouldn't want.
Like that's an issue. You know, that has like real concrete effects or consequences. Yeah. But so I went on this like whole tangent, like this whole tear. I'm still on it, really, of like really trying not to complain. And I remember I had my friend, actually the same friend, call me. He said that I complained about this one thing all the time, and I did not handle that well. Like I got way too defensive. Like I shouldn't. I'm not proud of how I handled that. But it was just like an eye opener to me of like I mean, like every example he brought up, I knew was basically like he would broach the topic with me, and then I would talk about it, and that would be, you know, in his mind he would perceive that as a complaint.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which granted, he was also kind of busting my chops, but like, you know, it still was like them's fighting words to me because I made such a concerted effort not to.
Yep.
But it was just an eye opener to me. I was like, you can really do everything right, or as much right as you can, and like you can still, for some people, not achieve what you're looking for.
Yep.
And that's like what I said earlier about like the patience and the long game is like that hurt and that sucked, but I'm confident that if I just keep it up for, you know, years, that eventually, you know, I will not be perceived as that. Should I care? Maybe, you know, maybe not.
Maybe a little bit less.
Maybe a little bit less, but that is where we're at.
Yeah. No, I mean, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was going to just like, to answer the initial question about like, what can people do with it? Yeah. It's just like, they're first off, the one thing to keep in mind is that you're never going to get 100% approval. I mean, you know, like there are always going to be stragglers or people that like, you know, if the first time you meet someone, you have to be having a bad day, and that's like the interaction they have with you, like that is how they'll perceive you. Hopefully you have enough, you've played it well long enough where people will go to bat for you and be like, no, that's actually not that person. Like you really just got them on such a bad moment. But maybe that's not the case. So you're never going to get 100% approval, and you have to be okay with that. Everyone's opinion is not built equally, at least in how we relate to them. I care a lot more what my dad thinks about me than someone on the subway. Yeah. You know what I mean? Totally. So that's important too. Make sure you're not just seeking the validation of everyone, but seeking the validation of people that can really really matter to you.
And people that understand you so they know what they're judging.
Yes.
You know, let's say you meet your favorite celebrity and they don't view you favorably and you thought they were awesome, but they don't know who you are. From that, like you said, one interaction could have been anything. So it's like, you know, who cares what like this baseball player thinks of me, even though he's famous. Like, you can't weight that person's opinion on you like how your parents' opinion would be, for example.
Yeah. And the other thing I think I would say is, and it's funny because we all know this, but everyone just forgets it, is even those people that you look at and you're like, that's who I want to like be perceived as, that's what I want people to think of me as or whatever, like, oh, like this person's so great and awesome, like they obviously all have crazy struggles and things that about them that like are really not admirable and things that you really don't want to be like. Yeah. And especially if you're the type of person to paint your life as how awesome it is and get defensive when people say it's not good or something's not good. A lot of those people really have their own struggles and you just don't see it because they don't openly talk about that stuff. But if you got an inside look, you would go, oh wait, okay, like, yeah, I still want to be like this facet of this person, but as like a big picture, like this person doesn't actually have everything all together, and you know, and that's why it's okay that you may not.
Right.
So those are probably like the 3 or 4 whatever biggest things I'd say.
Yeah, that's good, because yeah, totally, like we always see people's highlights on Instagram and stuff like that, and or on whatever, you know, you could see a documentary about someone and be like, oh, they're so cool, but it's like, if you walked a day in their shoes or a week or a month, you might be like, I'll take my old life back, you know, like I'll take my problems over their problems. Like, everybody has some kind of problems and you're probably not going to know what they are.
Yeah.
But everybody is a human and everyone has the same, like, you know, you might have different strengths and weaknesses, but it's not like you can't compare yourself to others because it's impossible to fairly compare.
And it's what's so ridiculous about it too is like, if you polled 1,000 people, 1,000 people would say they agree with that. But then when it comes to practice, you know, they just like
do it anyway.
Yeah, they just don't, you know, and which is so weird because like we all know that we all have issues and we all know that we all have our problems behind closed doors. So if you're the type of person to like, you know, try and mask that stuff and like say no, like actually everything's like awesome and I'm doing better than you, like that type of approach. I'm not talking about the person who's like, no, everything's good, like, you know, it is what it is. Like, I'm talking about the person who's like actively using other people to make their lives come off as better. That's like, I guess, more so the target I'm talking about. I mean, you know, we look at those people and we're like, you know, you just have to know as a human, like, okay, there is something like that this person isn't divulging for whatever reason.
I think you're right that we all know it and we all still do it, because I'm sitting here saying it and then I'm thinking like, maybe not super recently, but I can think of a time like maybe a year ago where I had thought like, oh, you know, like the one thing that I'm not like as good as I want to be on yet as a person is like, I see somebody else that I know doing that thing with ease, and for me it's a real struggle to do, and I'm like, it's so easy they can do it, why can't I do it? And it's like you're comparing to that person, even though it's like, you know, maybe they have some other problem that I've mastered and to me is not a problem. So it's just like, you can't compare because nobody's perfect, and I'm not telling them what my thing is and they're not telling me what their thing is, but we both have at least one, you know? So
yeah. And I mean, like that's another positive side I feel with being like really honest with people is just like, you know, letting them know. I mean, look, it's a balance of like not wanting to victimize yourself and be like, actually things are really hard and like I'm such a soldier for getting through it.
Yeah, I try not to do that.
But also being like, hey, you know, like, you know, not like anyone's looking at my life being like, oh my God, that's perfect Henry over there, but just like, you know, type of like you said, there are certain things that I have that you don't have and vice versa.
Right.
So it's like, you know, being kind of like a shoulder to lean on in that regard, or just like a comforting personality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think one of my problems I've been noticing lately is that I try not to like, well, it's hard to view it as a problem, but like because of the fact that I try not to sound like a victim of certain things, I accidentally downplay when something is wrong. People think there's not much of a problem when there's a pretty big problem, and it's not that I'm hiding it, but it's not that I'm like trying not to like make it sound worse than it is or something, and I end up making it sound better than it is, like without noticing. So then they're just like, oh yeah, he has this tiny thing and it's probably nothing. And it's like, no, I wouldn't have mentioned it if it was probably nothing. Like, it's actually a substantial thing, but I'm not trying to focus my energy on how bad it is, or like, it's just like, that's not where my attention needs to go because it's not productive.
Yeah, so I do like pretty much the exact same thing, especially with the advent of like this whole no complaining policy I'm trying to adopt.
You got to be careful. That one's a little worrying.
No, it is. It's a hard one to navigate for sure. And my general approach to it is, I know I kind of mentioned this before, but it's like if you ask, and for me it's like it has to be a genuine ask, like not just like, what's up, and then it's all good, like, and then I'll just like totally like dump on you. But if like you like really show like initiative to ask me what's up, then I'll happily tell you. Like, I guess what it all dials back to for me is I don't want to come off as a burden. And if you're someone who's like, hey, what's up? Oh, I'm glad you asked. This, that, and the other, and then I'm like, it's like becomes exhausting to deal with me. Yeah. But if I am important enough in your life where you actually want to help me work through these things, then I'm happy to utilize you and have this symbiotic relationship where you can help me out and I'll feel better and you can feel better knowing that you helped a friend out. That always is a great feeling too.
Great.
So like my general approach is, if you ask me about it, I'll tell you, but if you don't ask me about it, I'll keep it to myself. Because, if you don't want to hear about it, you have to give me a sign that you want to hear about it.
Exactly, it's for certain people.
And it's not, once again, it's not that it's because I'm embarrassed or ashamed to tell anyone. If anyone asked, and with serious intentions, I would tell them. Yeah. But I'm not just going to, divulge it all off rip.
Yeah, that's really good. That's how it pretty much should be, because, your problems are not for the person on the subway or for your friend when he only has 3 minutes to talk to you. It's like, it's for those situations where it's like you said, like somebody's in the mood to help out or to hear it, or if you really need it, you can ask someone like, hey, I have this problem. Could you find an hour to talk to me sometime this week or sometime today? Yeah. I would like to talk to you about this. It's not about us. It's just about anything. I need help, or like whatever it is, But it's like finding the right moment for it, and then you can go really deep with it. But it's like you can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
How did you get all your friends in the military except for you? Like, where did that come from? That's kind of unique. I don't think I have any military friends. I might actually, but not that I can think of right now. I might have like one or two like distant friends. Like there was like one fingerboarder who went to the army that I can think of, but.
Yeah, so I mean, a big one's my brother. And it's actually not like I'm friends with a bunch of his army friends, but it's more like, I'm friends with a couple, and I just hear mostly stories about them. So it was my brother. My friend Joey just happened to join. I guess another part of it is I was a Boy Scout, which naturally is like a bit of a feeder into the military sometimes. So I have like Joey I was a Boy Scout with. I have a buddy of mine I was also a Scout with. He is still in the military. And then just a couple of friends from high school, I guess. Yeah, I really guess. I mean, I guess if there are people who really don't have any, then I obviously have more than that. But it's not like I have a crazy amount of military friends.
You have more than me.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So that's really what it is. But like, I guess like all told, I probably have like probably under 10. And
some people don't even have 10 friends though. That's like a lot.
So I mean, I guess it also depends how you classify friends. Like, that's definitely like, friend would be a strong term. Like, like if it's like my brother's really close friend who I know about, like, yeah. I mean, I guess I'd more so just classify him as like, an acquaintance or, or in shorthand, just like a buddy or something. But like, we know who each other are, and the few times we've hung out, we've enjoyed it, even though my brother and him are super close. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Probably no greater story there. But I guess another part of it is that there is this, because I'm so close with my brother, and because my brother and I like talk, I've learned so much about the military from my brother. Like, military people tend to converse in a very specific way. They speak in a lot of acronyms. They speak in like a lot of like military speak that, because they have such a unique shared experience. And obviously I don't have that shared experience, but like I'm able to level with a lot of them, and like I'm able to listen to them and hear what they're like and understand what they're saying. Whereas there's like a learning curve if they're talking to a regular civilian. I have a buddy of mine who used to be in the Marines, not Joey, a different one. and we were just talking about some military thing the other day, and he literally goes, dude, how do you actually know all this stuff? He's like, he's like, I get you have your brother and your buddies in the military, but like, I would think you were in if you were just like talking to me like on the street or something. So, you know, just because I'd picked up a lot of that knowledge from my brother.
Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like the crossover that I can perceive as like your discipline and stuff is very developed, and it always has been since I met you, since you were younger, when you were 14. But like, you have like a very solid discipline that like it shows in a positive way on the outside, and it's not like a strict military like
Yeah.
like it's just like, wow, Henry's like, he knows what to do. He's like pretty well put together, you know.
Right,
like,
I appreciate that.
Solid dude, you know. And like, it's interesting, you know, because like, I don't know, I feel like parts of our society these days is like so against discipline almost, or they put discipline in the wrong places, and it's like, I don't know, you got your discipline in the right place, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like to think that as well. It's nice to hear you say that. I appreciate that.
It's working. See, and when you don't look for validation, you get real validating comments from people when it comes up in conversation, and then it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, if like what you just said would mean so much less to me if I was like talking to you about how like, yeah, I really like to think I'm a really disciplined person. Don't you think I'm disciplined? Like, it wouldn't, you know, obviously it wouldn't mean the same. So, you know, I appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. Cool. That was hilarious, dude. That stance. Don't ever do that again.
Is that gross?
I'm gonna pee my pants. What's your biggest strength?
My biggest strength, I would probably say, is, yeah, probably my discipline slash hard workedness, which I think is more so under the discipline umbrella.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to think I'm a very disciplined person. I there's a lot of people who always have that mentality of I'll do it tomorrow, which I like. Not say I've never dealt with bouts of that, but what I've noticed about myself is like, when I say I'm going to do something tomorrow, there's like an actual reason I can't do it today, and then I do it tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that I'll do it tomorrow only happens once. Like, it's really only it will happen tomorrow, and then it does. Yeah, obviously I think that's one of my biggest strengths. I think another big strength of mine, I always say, is like my superpower is my self-awareness. I like to think I'm really self-aware, which ladders back to like everything we were talking about before, just about like being able to be accountable and like do your best to grow as a person. I feel like you can only do that if you're really self-aware and, you know, are cognizant of like your faults and how people perceive you. Not to keep using buzzwords like that we've been using like the whole podcast, but, you know, I think that's important to be able to be able to look at your weaknesses and your faults and say, I'm not a bad person because of these, and I don't suck because of them, but if I'm able to address these, I should. And, you know, maybe for whatever reason there are certain that you just like can't address, like, you know, whatever that thing may be. Like, I don't know, if one of your weaknesses, or one of the things that you think is a weakness of yours, is like, I don't know, you like can't grow your hair out in a certain way or whatever. I mean, that's obviously a stupid one, like it's a bad example, but like if you can't grow your hair out in a certain way, or I guess here's a better one, like if one of your weaknesses is like you think you can't grow a beard, for example,
Yeah.
to like be able to look at that and be like, okay, I can't grow a beard.
That's out of your control, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just have to like be okay with that, and also not be like defensive when people, I don't know, make fun of you for not having a beard or something like that or whatever, and just like be confident in yourself, knowing like, because when you're that self-aware, you're able to like grapple with that ahead of time and be like, yeah, I know this about myself, like these things don't hurt me anymore, you know.
It's not news to me, you know.
Yeah.
Just who cares?
Which I guess is kind of intertwined with discipline in a way, just like, you know, because I think it takes some discipline to be self-aware, or at least like radically self-aware, as I think I am.
I think, I'm not sure, you might be onto something, but I never thought of it that way, because also I think of my self-awareness as like a double-edged sword. Like sometimes it's super helpful and sometimes it totally ruins the moment for me. It's like
How
I'm
so?
too self-aware and it gives me anxiety or something like, oh, my heart's beating too fast right now. What's going on? Or like something stupid like that. And it can totally derail you if you like spiral into anxiety versus if I wasn't aware of that, I wouldn't have even gone there at all. And I'd be immersed in the moment where I should be. And like, so sometimes the self-awareness, like when it's more physical, like it can trigger anxiety in people. And then or some people that are self-aware, not me personally, but some people are self-aware and it makes them very critical of themselves and very negative and like not confident. And so I think it can do both. But versus discipline, I feel like discipline, I was actually going to ask you a follow-up question, but we can go to it after. But I was going to ask you, like, what benefits does discipline bring to you so that people can get a deeper understanding? Because if you're not very disciplined or you haven't pondered discipline as a topic in general, it kind of seems foreign and strict and like, oh, why that? Why would you be such a way? Why would you be so rigid or something like that? When in reality, it's not. Like, you're also creative and you're also open. So it's like discipline in itself is actually a topic to dive into, I think.
Yeah, so I can answer your question with like this specific example. I mean, maybe me saying discipline and self-awareness are intertwined is wrong, but I guess...
Well, they could be intertwined too.
Exactly.
But...
Yeah, that's the way, like, I guess my approach to self-awareness, they end up being intertwined because to be like radically self-aware, like you said, of course, as with everything, especially with all radical things, there's downsides and positives of both. But like to be able to look at yourself and be self-aware and really acknowledge your faults, acknowledge your flaws, grieve them, mire in them, you know, for the time that you need to. It shouldn't take forever. To be able to do that and come out on the other end takes discipline and mental discipline to say, I'm going to sit in this. I'm going to sit in this pain or whatever you want to call it, this sad emotion, looking at all those stuff wrong with me. And I'm not going to let that speak ill of myself. I'm not going to make me think that I'm less of anything. But I'm going to use this as a way to better myself. And that's where like the discipline comes into play, because it's easy to sit in it and just be like, yeah, and just focus on all the negatives and say, oh yeah, it's because I suck. But it takes a little more mental fortitude to be able to bombard yourself with the negative stuff and still not feel that way. Let it completely tear you down.
I like that. It's like when you're feeling bad about something, you need to take the proper time to feel bad about it and be in that emotion, and then you also need to come out of it at the end. You can't just stay there, because all feelings pass anyways, but you can either allow it to pass or you can try to let it not pass. And it's like, if you have that discipline to be like, okay, I'm feeling 60% better about this thing, I still feel pretty bad, but now I'm going to choose to move on rather than try to solve that last 40% right now. It's like sometimes you just have to be like, pull a little bit of strength out and be like, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to just do it and we'll see where it leads. And then it usually leads somewhere good. It's like you figure out the rest later when you're like, at least you got out of bed or like wherever you were, like where you were suffering. And yeah.
Totally. Yeah. The grieving process is important. And I don't even just mean grieving in terms of like, you know, mourning the loss of a loved one, but I mean, you know, just anytime there's like a sad thing, you have to, or you know, just a not awesome thing, sometimes you just have to grieve it. And, you know, that's obviously a harsh word, but sometimes it's not that harsh of a process. Yeah, and that's important. And not to just let it consume you and then that's who you become the rest of your life. Like you said, you need to come out the other end of it.
Yeah, sometimes people get stuck on one because maybe they didn't process it right in the moment. They either held it in too much or they didn't share it or they didn't have the right perspective. But yeah, it's important to like immerse yourself in it when you need to, but then move on to the next thing too. Keep it going, keep things fresh, keep things rolling, keep trying. You know, if it's just that you failed at something, that's great. Keep trying, you know, do it a little different. It's the same as a fingerboard trick. Every time you miss the trick, you're changing little things in your finger positioning and movements until you land it. So life is the same as a skate trick, fingerboard trick. Just like keep trying.
Yeah,
totally. I think I'm a way more disciplined person than I realized I was for a long time. And I've been realizing it in the last few years, like, wow, I'm extremely disciplined. Like, I try not to compare myself to others, but if I do compare myself to others, I see it, where it's like, oh, I found out I was lactose intolerant, so I stopped eating milk and cheese and stuff like that, versus some people that I see that are lactose intolerant and they're like, yeah, sometimes I just eat it and throw up and it's worth it, or it sucks, or like, I'm like, why do you eat it? Like, I've never eaten it since.
I just want to say lactose intolerant people are like a very specific breed of psycho with that stuff. Like you won't talk to someone who's allergic to nuts who will be like, yeah, but I love Reese's, then I just EpiPen myself. Like that doesn't happen with people who are allergic to nuts. But people who like are lactose intolerant like do stuff like that all the time. Anyway, continue. That's just like a very specific observation.
It's true. I've come across a lot of them, but I'm not that way. I'm just like, I don't have it. I had it once by accident a few years later, and like I suffered so much, and it just confirmed to me like, don't do it, and that's it. And it's like, you can't slip up on that, dude. Like, I can't slip up on that. And so then it goes further to like, okay, what else? If there's something else I'm not going to eat, even if it's like, let's say I want to say I'm not going to do for a month, I'm not going to do for a month. Like, why would I just do the thing I said I wasn't going to do? And to me, it's like easy, if it's like a food that I used to like, and then I find out it's really, really bad for me or something, and I decide consciously I don't want to eat it anymore, then I just don't eat it anymore. And to me, it ends there. But to some people, it's like, oh, I slipped up and I had one, or like, I said screw it and I bought a box and I ate them all in one night, and it's like, I can't be that person even if I tried. Like, I don't even think of that as an option, Yeah. And it's the same with when I say I'm going to put down the phone for 20 hours, whatever, 24 hours, I just shut it off and I put it, like, you're not going to go back on it unless you weren't committed in the first place, is how I see it. So maybe I have some crazy discipline too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the business you've built, you don't build that without discipline. I mean, like, that's just straight up how it is. So you're definitely an example of discipline, I would think.
That's... I never even thought of it, but it's for sure, yeah.
And I mean, and that's not even to mention like, some of your more personal choices that you already kind of mentioned, like your very intentional diet and your dedication to, kind of staying in tune with life as opposed to always being on your phone. Like, I mean, those are very strong examples of discipline, I would say.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Yeah, one time I remember like, probably 10 years ago or something, like I was in Whole Foods in line and I was using my phone, I was on Instagram or something, and then I just realized like, wow, every time I'm in this line, I'm always on my phone and I don't see what's going on around me, and it keeps me calm because I freak out when I'm in the line for too long. Like, I don't know, I get stressed or whatever, I get like some weird anxiety. I still have this problem where I suck at waiting for things. Like, waiting is my least favorite thing. And but I would use my phone, and it wouldn't matter that I was waiting because I'd be in my phone. And then one day I was like, I'm deleting Instagram off my phone, and I'm not using this in public because I should be here where I am right now, and I should be in the moment and not in my phone. And I just got rid of it, and like, I just don't use social media when I'm out and about anymore. Like, I just straight up, I'm like, I can't be that person. If I see everyone in the line is doing it, I stop doing it immediately. And I'm like, I don't want to do that ever again. Like, this is sad. This is like, I don't want to use brutal words, but I'm like, it's really sad. It's like, it's kind of disgusting. Like, no one's here right now. All these people are somewhere else in their head. When we're all in a store, like, I don't know, you could talk to the person in front of you, or you could find a snack next to you in the little quick grab area, or just stupid little things, or like, something stupid and little or something big could happen. You might never realize there's like somebody you went to school with behind you and you can reconnect with them or something. Like,
yeah.
So, yeah.
My pushback, and we don't have to go into this too much, obviously, my pushback there would be, we also, we have the 24 hours in a day that we have, and if you can find ways to multitask and be more efficient with your time, then, that could also be cool. I get it if people are just doom scrolling while they're, waiting online for something.
Yeah.
But by the same token, you also have to weigh, like, okay, I know that if I go on my phone right now, I'm going to get a nice little dopamine hit and I'll probably see something I like or whatever. Or I could weigh that against the chances of, like, something really, really awesome happening if I'm not doing it. I mean, everyone has to make that, cost-benefit analysis themselves.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and you've made yours, and that's awesome. Like, but, I will say, like, because as someone who, I guess I don't actually always, it depends how long the line is, I guess.
You work too hard, Henry. You work too hard.
But, like, if I'm, like, if I'm online, I'll usually be on my phone, or at the very least I'm listening to music. I will say that. Definitely always doing that. But I always have earbuds in. But yeah, I do hear you. And it's whatever the decision is, it's commendable that you were able to make it and follow through with it.
Yeah, that's actually the only point of the story, was to say
I know.
that I thought that one day and I just did it ever since. Like,
Yeah.
I just, yeah, but I don't know. We all have this pressure these days to be like, oh, well, if you could be using the time for something productive, why aren't you? And I'm really pushing against that and saying, like, no, I'm the most productive when I'm procrastinating for something, and then I'll change the whole world. Like, you know, not change the world, but, you know, like, I'll do huge things because I don't want to edit a video or something. So I'll get on the computer and I'll be like, oh, let's make this huge, like, let's make a collaboration happen or something, or like make an event happen somewhere and like help a lot of people get to fingerboard together, or like, you know, something bigger than what I would waste my time on the phone in line with. So it's like, it's okay that I'm not using my time digitally in that moment, because later I'm going to like apply myself and do something like worthwhile. But I forget the tangent that I was kind of, that's not even what I like meant to talk about exactly.
Well, I mean, and tell me if I'm wrong, I just thought it sounded like what you were more so saying was just like, you know, you made this conscious decision to stop what you were doing, and it took the discipline you mustered up to follow through with it.
Yeah, no, but past that is like, I think people are too eager to multitask and to be productive at every moment. Like in the grocery store,
Separate
thinking about
tangent.
work. And I've been there also in the line after I got rid of Instagram. I'm like, oh, I'll do an email, you know? Like, this email will be very useful to answer this now. And then something, you know, maybe by the time I get home, I'll have an answer for that answer and we'll be farther along in this project. And that's stressful, dude. You shouldn't be doing that all the time. Like, I really think it's better to slow down and do less work but more intentional work. Do it intentional when you're sitting down to do the thing. And even how I use Instagram now, it's more intentional, where it's like, I'm going to sit down because I filmed this clip earlier and I would like to share it, or I have a new product I would like to show people, or I want to ask people to post questions for Henry. You know, Henry's coming on the show, I need to open up Instagram and post it. But it's not like I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and, oh, I gotta post Henry, and I'm scrolling more and more. It's like, no, I go on there because I have an idea to post Henry, and then if I'm unlucky, I'll get caught scrolling by accident. But I try not to. It still gets you sometimes.
It's not a luck thing, it's a discipline thing.
It is discipline, but it's also, you have to be mindful of that, because I only have the discipline when I remember to have it.
Totally,
I forget, and then I remember it and I close it instantly because I'm like, no, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally busting your chops. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's so easy. I mean, they have us so dialed in, man. They could, you know, it's crazy how easily they can suck you in. Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm someone who definitely spends too much time on my phone. So like, this is like a, yeah.
I still feel like I do, even that I use it so much less.
Yeah. So like, you know, I'm not saying that like this in particular is something that like I, you know, have addressed or whatever. But frankly, once again, like any issues in my life or whatever, or like any parts where I feel like I'm lacking, like, you know, a lot of them obviously I'm sure dial back to phones and social media or whatever. But like, there's not many things in my life where I'm like, if I spent less time on my phone, like I would be able to do this, that, and the other, you know. And look, I hear what you're saying too with like the, maybe in my mind, like the standing in line's not the best example, only because like that could be just like such a quick thing. But like, because you're right, it is important to really power down sometimes and just be in the moment, whether that is like, I mean, you know, a lot of people do that, they go camping and they do it, or like they'll just you know, have a bonfire with friends, like, or just a regular chit chat. Like that's obviously very important to wind down and just be in the moment for. Yeah, I guess this is just a me thing. Like, you know, for me, waiting in line at the store isn't one of the things that registers with me. Register, pun intended, not intended. Like that's not something that registers with me for. But I hear what you're saying as an overarching point, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's two different things to do it, to disconnect in everyday situations versus disconnect at a time when you have to disconnect. I
hear you, yeah, because, or else that, I mean, you know, not to put words in your mouth, let me know where I'm off base, but like if you're only doing it in those very intentional moments, like then that becomes the thing. Like that becomes a whole separate, like that just becomes a whole separate facet to it of like then when I do something like this, and then when I do this is when I log off, whereas it should be more like when I live my life, I should not be plugged in.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of times I'll recommend to people when I see them answering emails at 2 a.m., I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, for real. So I'm going to tell you too, like, you don't need to do it, because it's like your brain is always in work mode, which is like not stressful exactly, but it's almost a precursor to stress or something like that, where it's like when you stop doing it, you realize how much it was taking out of you energy wise. And I think when you're young, it doesn't affect you as much, and when you get older, or like when you hit a certain point, a lot of people realize this, and it's a different point for every person, but it's like, oh man, I was working way too hard in those years, or like at that time, or like, you know, you had that month that you were working too hard, so that was your point where it was too much for you. So maybe now you're doing less than that amount and it works. Yeah. But, you know, one day you might be like, dang, even right when I went to Mike's, I was working too hard, and I thought I wasn't, like, or not, you know. I'm not saying don't work hard, because I'm super into working really hard, actually. But I think there's a time and a place, and there's certain times when you have to not do anything.
Including 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Or line at the grocery store. I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you can do that once in a while, and I do it sometimes. If I'm up late and there's nothing to do, I got to do something. So it's like either read a book or maybe I want to do emails. So I'm not saying never, but I'm saying don't make it a regular habit. Don't be every night waking up in the middle of the night, checking your phone and doing your work.
You sound like my manager.
Do you do that every night?
No, not. Okay. Well, good. No. I know, definitely not in the middle of the night. No.
Yeah, because some people do. Like, I know people who have that as a habit. It's like, oh, if I wake up in the night to go use the bathroom, I'll turn my phone on, I'll start doing emails for an hour.
Oh, yeah, that's gnarly. No.
That's really not good for you. You can do that once if you can't fall asleep, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that twice a week or every day, or it's not a good habit.
Yeah.
That's the only point. But let's move on.
Okay.
You want to go into music?
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
Wow.
Music. What do you got?
Yeah. So, music, just a huge part of my life, always. And which is like, you know, I'm a big fan of music, which is a very basic thing to say. Have you ever talked to someone who's like, they start like talking to like a boy or a girl, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I really like them. Like, they're like super into music. And it's like, yeah, probably. Imagine asking someone if they like music, and they're like, I can take it or leave it.
I've met a few people that aren't into music, but it's rare.
It's very rare. I mean, that's like...
Most people are into music.
Yeah, because, you know, at least their own music, you know.
You're going to have to elaborate on that.
Sure, yeah. So, like, I don't know, the type of music I like, I'd say I have a pretty varied taste, which, I mean, a lot of people say that, but then the second you throw on Mongolian throat singing in the car, they want you to change it. So it's like, oh yeah, you're full of crap. You don't actually have that. But I'd say it's probably like, if it was like a pie chart, it's probably like largely like rock. I'm gonna try not to over genre, because you could just genre things to death and be like, and make it so ultra specific that like 3 bands exist in the genre.
Yeah.
So like, it's like largely rock, fair amount of rap. Those are definitely the 2 biggest ones. And then just like some kind of miscellaneous stuff, some folk, not much country. Any country I listen to probably falls under the rock or folk umbrellas. I go in through some like, and then just like some other phases of stuff. A good amount of like electronic music, like MGMT, or not so much Black Moth Super Rainbow, but like bands kind of like that. That's a smaller wedge in the pie chart. And then like little phases of stuff here and there. I went through a bit of a jazz thing not too long ago, and not like, I don't like regular fusion jazz, but like Duke Ellington's and whatnot, and like Fats Waller. Like I liked a lot of Alex is throwing up the peace signs, big fan. Yeah, like I like some of those people, but not like I like listen to them, like listen to their whole discographies or whatever and turned it into a personality trait, but like I definitely went through a stint of them. So yeah, I just love music, super expressive, there's so much of it. And yeah, I have like a weird approach to music, or at least weird for like people who are into it. Most people who are like really into music tend to like want to like listen to a whole band. Just like when they listen to a band, or a band drops an album, they like listen to the whole album in one go, and like they try and like analyze it and all this stuff. Whereas like my approach has always been like, I just like individual songs. So there are bands that like I love, and well, actually, for the bands I really love, I do know a lot of their songs, and I've tried to get better lately at like being a little like listening to more of their discography. But a lot of times, like there will be a band that I know of, but I really only know like 3 songs by them that I might really really like. And I remember when I was younger, I always had to be careful. There'd be a band that I would know like literally 1 or 2 songs by them that I'd really like, and then someone would be like, "Oh, have you heard of this band?" I'd be, "Oh my god, I love them." And it's like, wait, I probably shouldn't say that, because if by saying that, there's like implications of like, oh, you probably think I know X about the band, but I probably don't, you know? Yeah. So yeah, like if I'll over genre the rock stuff a bit, just because that's like really expansive, obviously. So like a good amount of punk. I love the Misfits. They're from Jersey. I got my license in the same town that most of them are from. Lodi represent. Cool. So like big, like I like the Misfits. I love Blink 182. Just saw them live. Like Sum 41. Those were a lot of the like Blink, Green Day, Sum 41. Like those were some of the bands that were like pretty pivotal in like my middle school life. Like I was really like, one of very very few people who listened to them. Nirvana was another one. The Offspring.
Wow, I feel like that was middle school, like for me.
For a lot of people, that's when now granted, but when you were in middle school, that was when that music was like new-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for me, it had already kind of, not so much run its course, like those bands were still around and still releasing stuff, but like their heyday had, or not their heyday, but like their big album releases had passed.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, I feel like Green Day is like the generic like middle school graduation. They have like that
Time of your life?
Yeah. I feel like that has to be timeless.
Yeah.
I hope. Maybe it's not, but I feel like that's just middle school graduation for everyone. I could be totally wrong. I don't know.
No. I mean, granted, we didn't have that song in particular, but most people knew that one. But I meant like when it really came to like, I mean, that song's not very offensive. I mean, that's really an incredible song. Like, it's called Good Riddance, or technically, but I mean, that is such like that's an amazing song, and it's like it's acoustic guitar, good vocals. Like, it's easy on the ear. When you start busting out some like heavy distortion and punk rock guitar, that's when people, especially where I'm from, like it was rap and hip hop is like really the big thing, and just general pop music. So like that was a little more offensive to the ear to the eardrums.
People start leaving the room.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny when people would actually give it a shot. For the most part, they'd be like, okay, I don't hate this, and that was a bit of a start. It's funny. I kind of I won't vocalize this point somewhere. Like, remember when Stranger Things used a Metallica song? They used, I think, Master of Puppets.
I heard about that way after, because I don't watch TV, basically, and I don't watch Stranger Things, and, like, I was into Metallica already, but didn't it bring, like, a big resurgence of people into Metallica again?
Yeah, so it got...
Which is funny, because I'm just like, everyone knows Metallica, but I guess a lot of people didn't.
Well, so a lot of people know Metallica, but a lot of people don't listen to them because they just consider them, like, metal, and I don't like metal. It's funny, when you talk to people... who like say that they listen to a lot of music, they listen to all types of stuff. A lot of times, I notice this so much, the caveat they'll say is, oh, I listen to all types of music except screamo and country. Like, it's funny that those are like two of the ones that like many people just like totally nix right away.
Yeah.
And often that comes from just like a lack of understanding of the two genres. Like, I don't like screamo either, but like there's probably a lot of bands that you think are screamo that like aren't. Like, you know.
They overgeneralize it. And
exactly.
They miss out on things.
Yeah. So when that, and I didn't know, like I don't watch Stranger Things either, but when that happened, like there was a bit of a rift where there were a lot of people who were like, wow, all these people are just like Metallica because it's cool, like that's so stupid, and they're like kind of gatekeeping them, like, Metallica fans. And then there's another side of people who are like, don't gatekeep. If it's bringing people to listen to music, like that's what matters. Which
is what I agree with.
So, and I totally get that, and look, I agree with that too, on a very general level. And like I said, I'm also, it's funny, I feel like I listen to a lot of music that gatekeepers listen to, but I actually really am not a gatekeeping type. I love sharing my music and getting people into it.
Yeah.
But I do understand like where a lot of like those metalheads might be like coming from, of like, we tried to show you Metallica years ago, and you guys just called us like, you called us psychos or crazy or made fun of us for liking it, and now that's in a show, now you like it. Like, I actually get being offended by that.
I do understand that too, but ultimately it's like, whatever path it is that gets you to like something, just enjoy it once you enjoy it. That's
what should matter, if you really care about it. But exactly, like the type of person I am, that is the route I like to think I would take. Yeah. But all I'll say is like, it's not super black and white. Like, I actually do understand like how the human emotion like plays into that, of just being like, oh, dude, like, the other day I was talking to my best friend. I saw this band, Greta Van Fleet. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah.
They're super good. They sound
My brother saw them also
Really?
in concert.
There you go.
Yeah.
Me and Dylan, man. We're homies.
That's great.
So I went on a kick of them for a while. I still listen to them sometimes. And I was hanging out with my best friend. I have two best friends growing up, and they're still my two best friends today. And I was hanging out with one of them a few months ago, and we were talking about it. And I was like, yo, man, check out this. Like, and I turned him on to a few bands over the years. He's like super not a gatekeeping type. Like, he's super receptive to hearing new music and stuff too sometimes. So I was telling him about Greta Van Fleet. And I was like, dude, they're actually really cool. They're like give or take our age, just a little older. They're like brothers. They sound just like Led Zeppelin. They sound a bit like Rush. It's like super cool. And I played him a few songs. We're in the car together, and he liked them all good. Right? A few weeks later, we're hanging out, and we're literally just in my house. I remember I was like finishing work, and he was just sitting. He was like, hey, I've been in this new kick of this band recently, like Greta Van Fleet. And I look at him, like I thought he was just like busting my chops. And I'm looking at him, and he's like kind of like half laughing. And I'm like, he's like, what? I was like, you're laughing. You're just, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is, you're saying that because I told you about them, right? He's like, you told me about them? I was like, are you kidding me? He was like, yeah, dude. He was like, I've been listening to a bunch of them recently. They sound just like, and I go, Zeppelin? He goes, yes, that's who. I wanted to kill him. I absolutely wanted to kill him right there. I was like, which, obviously it was fine. We laughed about it, but it was just not funny. It was like, I told you about this, and not like I care about getting my due credit, especially because that was like a funny interaction.
Yeah.
Like I can totally understand like why it's frustrating for like someone to show someone a band and like be really into it and all this, and then for them to like actively be like, no, I don't like it, and then years later be influenced by someone else and then be into it. Like I can see how that hurts. Is all.
Yeah, for sure.
That was not one of those examples, but that was just funny, I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. A lot of rock. That's a big thing. Like I said earlier in the podcast, a big thing that Tim and I bonded over. I know he mentioned it in his appearance that we talk about the Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Tony Hawk Underground soundtracks all the time.
Yeah.
Kevin H hates it when we're in the car with him and we'll play it. But the Tony Hawk podcast, the Tony Hawk Underground games were like pretty or just the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games in general were pretty formative in like my music taste. And another big one was Guitar Hero. That was super big. Guitar Hero 3 is like one of the best games of all time, up there with like Tony Hawk's Underground or whatever, in my opinion. And both of those songs had a lot of bands that I was like, whoa, like I like this stuff. Like Blink-182 was probably my first ever favorite band. Besides like the Beatles, who I had heard songs from and stuff and liked.
Yeah.
Like Blink was probably the first band where I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And I think this is my favorite band, And yeah. And everything downstream of that, I got into playing guitar. I don't jam enough with people, which I should probably do more of, even with like Tim and people like that. But yeah, a lot of really good relationships got fostered from that. In high school and college, I had friends who were in bands and stuff. When I was in high school, a lot of my friends just were always a lot older than me, largely because I was really good friends with my brother, so then I became friends with his friends, who I'm still friends with today. So like when I was in high school, they were in college and like they were in bands and stuff. And I remember like traveling with my brother to go see them playing concerts and like,
cool.
And then, got involved in like the basement show scene of like, just DIY shows at a random house or whatever. And that was really cool to be, not like I was a part of it, but just, to bear witness to it, so to speak. And that was, all cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What about you? What type of music do you like, Mike?
Too much, dude. I listen to a wide variety of music.
Except Screamo and country.
Except Screamo and country music. Yeah, I don't really listen to much of those. Well, no, I mean, I've been getting, like, more and more into a wider variety of music because I feel like for a long time... I mean, I was just talking about this on another episode, so I'm not even going to go too into it. Okay. But basically, I like started listening to music like in my parents' car when I was very young, and it was like Metallica and similar bands on the radio and Pink Floyd and stuff like that, and I like all that stuff. And then I got into like Daft Punk and electronic and stuff, which is totally different. Mm-hmm. And then like lately I've been just branching out like in more directions and stuff. I can appreciate types of music that I didn't like before, and that just opens a world to like so much stuff. So like if you look at my record collection over there, there's a wide range of like, you know, from stuff you know and love to stuff you've never heard of, and then like stuff that's like, what the heck is this? It's barely music, to like, wow, this is a masterpiece. Like all kinds of whatever. Just you can look through them after.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you know, I have some records from like bands that you mentioned, for example, and some that you've probably never heard of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good to have a well-rounded taste. I think also
Yeah.
people get too mad at like, oh, you can say you don't like a band. It's like, oh, well, you haven't tried this out. This, like, you haven't listened to this song, whatever. It's like, yeah, but you could dedicate your entire life from here on out to the rest of your life listening to every song, and you won't even make a dent. It's like, you know.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
So you know, just because you're not listening to one song, like, you know, you can, if you don't like a song, or you don't like the first minute of a song, or whatever it is, or there's a band that you've heard several songs by that none of them you like, it's probably not worth any more of your time to keep listening to stuff that there's a higher chance that you're not going to like it, and you can explore other stuff.
And you could come back to that later in a few years, and you might like it.
Yeah.
Because that's happened to me. Like Boards of Canada, I love it now. It's one of my favorites. I even made that fingerboard graphic, and I didn't like them when I think Jay showed me them around when I was listening to Black Moth kind of for the first few years or whatever, and he was like, yeah, they're similar. They like inspired them and stuff. And I listened to it, I'm just like, this is depressing, I hate it. And I couldn't like it. And now I love it. I'm like, it's not depressing at all. It's so chill. Yeah. It's cool. So it almost depends on where you are in your frame of mind and what you want to hear and stuff.
Yeah, I think just like the most important thing is just like being able, or not so much being able, being open to checking new stuff out, and also being able to articulate why you do or don't like something. Because that way, like, you know, if someone, like, if you can get better music suggestions that way. If you're saying, oh, I don't like it because of this like super vague reason,
it's not good.
Exactly, it's not good. It doesn't sound good.
It probably is good, and it's probably not good for your ears.
Yeah, and you know what? And I get it. It might not be good for your ears. Yeah. Tell me why, and then I can like.
Yeah.
Not like I'm the end all be all of music suggestions, but just in general of like, it makes it so you're not coming off as, you know, I don't like it because I don't like it, or you know, or more so like I don't like it because it's bad. It's just more like I don't like it because it's not aligning with what I'm looking for right now.
Exactly. Like if you think it's bad, say what's bad about it. You can't just say bad or good. It's not that, because it's like somebody put time into making that, and if enough people like it that it's considered music, it's probably not bad. You know, it might just be that the subject matter is not to your liking, or the type of instruments is not what you like to hear, or the speed or the rhythm, or like it could be something that basic as any of those things, or it could go deeper, but it's like it's not bad just because it's not what you like to hear. And like music that I like makes me feel really, really good, and music that I don't like, it's almost like I'm not listening to a music, or it fades into the background kind of and it does nothing for me. But when those songs are on, if I really try to be mindful and listen to them, it's like I can hear why somebody would like this, and sometimes that makes me start to like it too. Yeah. So,
and you know, a lot of people say too, like, oh, you need to listen to the full album. You know, that's when you really understand it. And it's like, I'm no, I'm not gonna do that. Sometimes I will, but sometimes I won't.
Because I've been getting more into listening to the whole album lately. I used to always be like into like a song or a few songs, and then like relating to what you said is like kind of how I start, is like I find a song or two that I really like by a band, and I just know those, and I listen to them 100 times, but then I'm like, oh, they're so good, I want to see if they have more songs that are like this.
Yes.
And then I get like all their music, or like a full album or two or a few, and start playing through the album from start to finish, and hearing all of it. And then once I got back into vinyl, it's like almost always I'm going to listen to the full album from start to finish each time, because that's how it's meant to be kind of presented and listened to. And then if I'm in the mood or I don't have super much time, I might look for the song I want to hear.
And it's funny, that's actually literally on the drive up here, I played through an album that I've never listened to before, just because I knew a few songs on it that I really liked, and I was like, I should probably give it all a shot. I'm just saying it's not a zero-sum game of, oh, the reason you don't like this song is because you didn't listen to it within the span of a whole album. It's like, you know,
no,
like
you
I
might
said,
just not like it.
Exactly. And, you know, I might want to spend that time checking out other individual songs that I might like more, or whatever.
Totally. Like, some of my favorite albums have songs that I don't like that much on them, and then they have songs that are so incredible on them, and you tend to want to skip them. But then there's certain times when you're like, all right, I'm gonna listen to the whole album, and then the song that you didn't think that was good was all of a sudden like, oh, it fits right there, it makes sense, like, or like I heard this new thing in it and it sounds better to me now.
Yeah.
Like it could grow on you that way. So yeah, either way works, but there's benefits to both, I think.
Totally. And yeah, it's important to be willing to revisit. And also just being like understanding like there are some songs that I just don't like, and that's doesn't mean the songs are bad and doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just I just don't like it right now.
Yeah.
Maybe down the line. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Shall we go to the submitted questions?
Let's do it.
You have a favorite Black River park?
I am notoriously bad with naming the Black River parks.
You can just describe it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have to do. So I think there's the big park. If there's like one big park in particular, it's the one in the Vu location all the way in the back, right across from that alien guy that guy Paul drew with the waves and the big. Yeah, which one is that?
I want to say G8, but is it?
Is it with the humps?
Yes.
Yeah.
The G8, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah,
so
that is the
G8. And then there's like a more of a plaza, a Black River Plaza that similarly it has like that. I think it has like that black mani pad. It also has a quarter, and then
yeah, that one's fun, and the little stair set and the
a little stair set with the rail and I think there is a hip. I think there's a mushroom in there right now, like a little plastic mushroom that you just have in there for decoration.
Yeah, it came with it.
Oh, did it? Okay, yeah, that one I also really like.
Yeah, cool.
There you go.
Who is Henry? Oh, we have to start all over.
Oh, damn it, roll the tape.
You go to the beginning and you'll find out.
Yeah, I knew that question was coming. Yeah.
Loose or tight trucks?
Tight, medium, closer to tight.
Let me see. Yeah, that's like exactly how I use them too.
Yeah.
I would say it's funny. Some people pick up my setup and they're like, it's so loose. And other people pick it up, it's so tight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're mediums.
So I used to ride really tight trucks.
Me too, rock hard.
Yeah.
And I would like tilt it towards me and tighten it and make it like that it's like
and
that.
it would stay that way.
Yeah.
I mean, not for nothing, I would do ones that like, obviously you can move it if you wanted, but I mean just like, like the Teflon bushing type stuff. That was more when I was like getting into fingerboarding and I was like, oh, if it's any looser than that, the bolt's just gonna fall off. Or the nut's gonna fall off, I should say. But
before lock nuts.
Yeah, and eventually once I started doing more lock nut stuff, I was like, okay, cool. And then like I said earlier, that first rendezvous I went to where people were just straight up wobbling, and I was like, oh, this is like possible. I still think tight is like a little better, but like for me, but yeah, a little bit of give is nice.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the tighter you go, the more kind of consistent you can get, but the less good it feels in a way. Like, I find like a happy medium is good, but people whose trucks are too loose, some people are consistent with them, but a lot of people, it affects their performance if it gets too loose, so you gotta watch out for that.
Yeah, totally.
Your worst setup?
So I really like ever or like
I don't. It just says your worst setup. Could be ever. Yeah. Did you have a bad one in the past?
So that's the thing. The past few years, since I've only been doing one or two, I get them pretty dialed. So like they end up being good. I'm trying to think. The worst setup, because I did so many trades, I like probably set up some really gnarly boards before where I'm just like, this just doesn't work. I don't know if I have a good answer to that. Probably just like some. Oh, I'll give like a funny answer to that. One of my first sponsors, it was a company called Turtle FB. I don't even mind name dropping because it was literally like 10 years ago, and the guy's like, he's a kid, and he's like, we're super not in the game anymore. And he sponsored me, and he sent me a sponsor me deck where he wrote "Want Some Slaw" on it, which was really cool. But the board was hot garbage. It sucked. But I used it, and I set it up with like non-bearing wheels and dump trucks, and talked about super tight. I think they were actually tech deck bushings that I used in there. So zero give. But I still, I filmed with it how I did. Then I ended up finding out, I forget how I even ended up leaving the team. I think maybe company just kind of folded, and I didn't really care. Company, you know, the kid who made the boards didn't want to anymore, so he stopped. But ironically, that kid, I remember he was from Jersey, and he goes to, like, I was on one of my friend's Instagram pages the other day, and they follow each other. Like, they go to college together.
Wow.
I still need to ask him about it. And there's like a girl I work with who it looks like they went to high school together or something. Like, they follow each other on Instagram. So
Cool.
I always kind of wanted to rekindle there. But yeah, that was probably one of the worst setups I used. I'm disparaging an old sponsor.
Hey, dude, I want to reconnect with you. By the way, you gave me my worst fingerboard
Which
ever.
I still have, though, by the way. I still have it. I'm trying
sick.
to hang it up. Yeah.
That's cool. How long do you fingerboard for?
That's a good... So I've been fingerboarding for 10 years, give or take, just over or so. How long do I fingerboard in an individual session? It totally depends. Like, I mean, obviously, like, last night we were, like, stacking clips and just banging them out, so that was, like, you know, a couple hours or whatever, but, like, and I haven't done it with much intentionality lately, but usually, especially if I'm filming clips, like, it's probably between 10 to 50 minutes, give or take, 10 to 50 minutes. Yeah, that's probably usually like my. I mean, when I was younger, like when I was like really way more into it, I would just always be doing it. Like, no matter what I was doing, I would be, you know, flipping around or whatever. But lately, or when I do it now, it's probably between like 10 minutes to an hour, give or take.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tim Hurley, best song in Guitar Hero.
There we go. Best song in Guitar Hero. Probably Cliffs of Dover.
What is it?
Cliffs of Dover, Eric Johnson.
I'll have to listen. I might know it. I'm not good with the names of songs, but I always, if I've heard a song, I remember it.
You would know it the second you heard it. Super
Cool.
bouncy. I will also say, though, Guitar Hero World Tour had Damn It by Blink-182 in it, and that's what got me into Blink. Guitar Hero 3 also had Reptilia by The Strokes, which also got me into The Strokes, which are like, those are like two of my favorite bands. So
Sick.
those two are like, but those songs are also like, those aren't good Guitar Hero songs. Cliffs of Dover is a good Guitar Hero song. So there's my answer, Tim.
Cool. Play it on the speakers when we're done.
Word, yeah.
I want to hear it. Let's see, who else? WhatsApp glasses? Does that mean anything to you?
Is it from someone?
Evil FB?
WhatsApp glasses? Does he find me cute? He's asking if the kid with the glasses has WhatsApp.
Probably.
Maybe.
Could be. We don't know.
I don't know.
Who is your dad?
Who is my dad?
Is it a David Smith reference? Or no?
No, he's everyone's dad. He's just like the father of fingerboarding in so many ways. I don't know. I probably, maybe Kevin H is up there. Kevin H is up there as a pretty fatherly fella to me. Yeah, let's go with that one.
That's amazing. Why are all your friends back home so much better than you at fingerboarding? Raw.
No, that's a good question from Joey, for sure. I'm definitely right about that, right? That's him? Okay, yeah. Look, it's a great question. I just wasn't blessed with the skill like they are. And I might add, raw is what they say in the Marines. Like, that's basically they just say it to everything. Like, that's their way of saying, like, okay, copy, heard, roger, like,
okay.
Rah. It's short for hoorah, they say rah. So we say that a lot back, back home.
Amazing. Yeah. Ask him why he's the worst.
I mean, that's also a great question.
Zach Van Gelder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that is a great... I mean, he could probably answer that, honestly. Answer it better than I can.
We'll have to have him on the show sometime.
Yeah,
that would be a cool one.
Yeah, it would be a cool one.
Yeah.
And just make sure, like, one of the big pillars that you guys discuss is, like, why Henry is awful. We'll have so many answers. I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Potato FB0 says hi. Tell him I said hi.
Hey, man. What's up?
Have you ever been told you look like Henry from the show The Wonder Years?
I don't think I've heard that one.
Well, now you have.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. I'm curious now.
Doug Bodkin. What happened with A Bruise Girl?
Okay, he told me he told me he was like, you're gonna know the question I'm asking. That was what I figured he was gonna ask.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, so I should have read the question and then said who it was.
I mean, I would have
Okay.
known, like, for
Yeah.
sure. So, do you know the Abreu's girl story? No?
I don't remember, but it might, if you
It
jog my
might-
memory.
like, this is just something we've been riffing about it lately. So, last Rendezvous, there's a bar right next to the Rendezvous location called Abreu's.
Yeah.
And I went with, like, Waterfall Dave, Doug, Scott, like, a few of us. Well, me and Dave just went at first, and then they ended up showing up. And Doug and I were sitting next to each other talking. Dave and I were just talking to the bartender. Not, like, flirting or anything, but we were just, like, talking and conversing. And I thought she was very attractive. And afterwards, I left my phone number on the receipt, to which she never called or texted. And Doug saw me doing that. So Doug and I just riffed back and forth about the Abreu's girl. And the running joke is that he's actually dating her now, and they're the ones who are in touch with each other. So to answer the question more directly, what was the question exactly? How are things?
What happened?
What happened? Absolutely nothing. Dead on arrival, fizzled out before beginning is the answer there. But yeah.
Yeah. You didn't come on strong enough. You can't just leave your number. You gotta give her. You gotta like.
Yeah,
You know.
look, that is an approach too.
Hey, if it was supposed to work, it would have worked anyway. So
Exactly.
you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
If she really wanted it,
And
she
if-
would have
and-
hit you up.
And if she texted me and she was like, I forget what he was wearing, but basically we were saying it would be really funny if she texted me and she was like, "Oh, are you?" and then described Doug. Like, that would be really funny. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well. Oh yeah, we have more.
I'm not gonna take that from someone, by the way, who drinks coffee and lemon juice, which is absolutely nauseating. I could run my car off of it. Disgusting. Anyway, continue.
Roasted. What's his go-to order from Takeout Express?
Do they mean Mr. Takeout?
That's my guess.
Golden Warrior, baby. Golden Warrior all day.
Warrior. So good.
So good. Golden Warrior. I had a buffalo bomb the other day. Those are also not bad. But those
Dude,
get
their
to be a little
buffalo
much.
chicken is like legit. Like,
Yeah.
I love that.
I have fried dough bites still in the fridge, actually, that I'm going to take home. Those are really, really good. Yeah.
Those are amazing.
But the main go-to, I would say, is the Golden Warrior, for sure. I mean, it's, yeah, godly.
Yeah. Dude, here, this just came up again. He said he's gonna freeze his love. Has technology changed him?
Wow. Who?
Justin McGill?
Wow. That's wild that people, like, that's really funny.
I asked basically that question yesterday. I
Yeah.
was like, what does this mean?
Technology has certainly changed me. My love has, I'd argue, has been frozen for a while, but I also didn't write the song, nor did I sing it. That said, I used it, so it is, I suppose, supposed to be reflective of what I was feeling at the time.
It must be.
Yeah, that's, so, to answer his question, yes, technology has changed me. And that's so sick that people, like, actually remember that song. I remember, I really liked it, and I really liked how it fit in the video part. That's cool.
It was a good song, and I feel like it's partially memorable because you're trying to figure out what the heck it means exactly the whole time.
I didn't
so
think
you
people would
remember
listen
it
to
more.
it. That's so, like, I didn't think people would really even.
I don't know, if
That's
it's some
of
generic
course.
lyrics that you've heard before, you don't remember the song so much. But if the lyrics are kind of something weird about them, or like it sounds good but you don't know what it means, it's just like you ponder it over and over again, and then it's stuck in your head and you remember it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's cool.
And he also has, like, a pretty, like, baritone-y voice that, like, I feel like doesn't perfectly match, like, the melody of the
Yeah.
song. So, like, it really sticks out.
Yep.
So maybe that's also why. Interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll link to that part in the description as
Yeah.
well. What's Henry's favorite song and why?
My favorite song,
Can't be in Guitar Hero.
it is not, but that band was in Guitar Hero. It was, my favorite song is You Only Live Once by The Strokes. I just love that song. Like, I probably heard that song for the first time I was, like, 11 years old, give or take. And it, like, still gives, like, I listen to it to this day, and it still gives me, like, chills every time I listen to it. Just a really, really, really cool song. I think it's just done so well. That has sat pretty firmly at #1 spot of favorite songs for years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How has fingerboarding and the culture impacted your life? That's from Jeff.
Jeff Roscoe.
Yes.
I mean, one big way is I met him, which is lovely. And I mean, the biggest impact I'd say it's had two big impacts. Sorry, it's had way more than that, but two that I'll, like, touch on here.
Yeah.
Is I mean, at first it just gave me such a unique community and just something to do with my time that I wasn't doing. Like, I really have no idea what I would have been doing with my time as a kid if it wasn't fingerboarding. Not to say that I would just be like slacking off and doing something unproductive, but I really don't know what it would have been. And this was like such a niche outlet that really, I mean, it really just checked all the marks of like pretty much everything I was looking for at the time. I mean, it didn't help that it wasn't like particularly cool to do. I didn't love that part of it. I actually like, it was funny too, like when I was like into it, I had so much fingerboard stuff on my desk. When people would come over, I'd actually put a blanket over it so people wouldn't see it. Now granted, that wasn't because I was that embarrassed about fingerboarding. I actually didn't care that much, but I just had like, I had so many at that point, and it was so like cluttered. Like people would look at that and be like, "Oh, this is someone who actually like has a problem and like only does this with their life." Like if I just had a couple setups or whatever, I probably wouldn't have cared. But so other than that, though, I mean, it was really such like a cool experience and just a cool thing I was able to do. And the other big thing was, yeah, I mean, just the people I met, and I mean, like that's like kind of a cop-out answer, but like what was also really cool about it was, I mean, even when I was a kid, like I said before, a lot of my friends were always older than me. But that was, you know, when I was really young. So when I got into fingerboarding and I was still really young and I was becoming friends with all these people who were really way older than me. You know, I was 14, friends with Tim, who was in his early 20s, which, you know, when you're 40 hanging out with a 50-year-old, it's probably not that much. But like when there's a big chasm between a 14-year-old and a 20-something-year-old,
Yeah.
like just experience-wise and whatever, maturity-wise, whatever. And so it really helped me like, so many of the people I was hanging out with were just so much older than me, and it really taught me and helped me learn how to like interact with people who are older than me. And like,
Yep.
you know, I'm not gonna say that made me like some super mature person or that whatever, but like I feel like it just taught me lessons in maturity, and it made it easier for me to, yeah, interact with all sorts of adults moving forward. You know, especially because like I said, it was like, since I was a year ahead, like everyone was older than, like I was always like the really young one. Which not like I ever really caught flack for or anything, but it was just cool that so many of my friends were so much older than me, and it made it easier to interact with people who are older than me just my regular life, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just a kid, you know, whatever. I probably don't want to be super close with you or super like tight with you," but I could, and just kind of be able to be like, bring experiences from some of my older friends and have them realize like, "Oh, okay, he actually, you know,
Yeah.
can get by with, you know, he can vibe with us," that type of thing.
Yeah. It's cool how the fingerboard community is like almost everyone's a good role model too, and like, you know, you got into a good group of people who it's like they were older than you, so they're going to influence you, and but it's all in good ways, you know. It's like it's not like, I don't know, some places where people like hang out with kids older than them and get into bad things too early when they don't have judgment whether to do or not to do. And but with us it's just like everyone at my house was chill, and there was no like, there's no way it would have went any worse, you know. It's like all the fingerboarders you meet are like chill. They're smart, they're not like crazy or anything. So,
and I think part of it too, and I did this in my regular life too with my friends who were older than me, but this was just like another layer of it is like, yeah, all of these were like really good people and people I loved and cared about, but I was even able to like observe something that I saw, an approach to life that one of my friends was taking who was way older than me, and just that I didn't agree with or I didn't like, and it was just being able to look at that and being like, okay, that is something that they do that I don't like. Let me be weary myself of like making sure I take whatever steps necessary to not do that. Or like, oh, that's interesting that this person does that. Exactly. You can see like, you know, you could pick and choose and pull from each person of like things that you do and don't like, and use that to shape your own decisions. And that's something I think I did. That's something I definitely did with my friends and my older friends in regular life and my fingerboard friends.
Yeah, that's good. As long as you have the awareness to do that, it's a very powerful thing. You know, you can see what types of, you know, first you meet people and you're just like, yeah, everyone's awesome, and then you get to know them more, and it's like, okay, that thing that seemed like, how are they possibly doing that and being okay, and then you realize they're not okay, and it's like, okay, don't do that. But then you see it on the same hand, it's like, okay, look at this person and how, you know, these traits in them that I admire, and look where it got them. That's amazing. I want to be like that, you know? So it's really good to like be aware of the differences in the people that you're around, especially when they're influencing you just by being like, you're learning from them and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That might have been the last one, but let me double check. Yep. That was all the questions.
That was it.
Yep.
Lovely.
This has been an amazing time. We could go another 3 hours, but I need to eat first, so.
I have a 4-hour drive home, so look at that.
Oh no. Yeah, so we'll end it here, and one day we'll do part 2, I'm sure.
Word up. Happy to.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that was a great time.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Done. Finnel.